Since birth, people in this world have been strictly ranked according to a rigid hierarchy. It's a paradise for the strong, but it's also full of pressure. It's unfair to the weak, but those rules completely changed the moment this young man appeared. Someone who was just a rookie signing up for his first rank-up battle. While people just hunt rabbits or catch birds to test their newly learned skills, he walked straight into a bear den and took down the biggest one. In his first combat match, he accidentally wiped out 2 top-tier players. The rank 2 fighter nearly got sent back to the lobby. Turns out he's the student of the person known as the world's strongest hunter. In a peaceful village, a 16-year-old boy named Lao was busy chopping wood under the scorching sun. Wiping off his sweat, he told himself he was finally done. But before he could even rest, an old villager called out to him. "Since you're done, help me plow the field, would you?" But immediately, a powerful kick from behind sent the old man sprawling to the ground to Lao's shock. The one who did it was Yuna, who angrily shouted, "Stop making Lao do everything." Despite the old man lying flat on the ground, he still tried to argue that it was because Lao would always just agree to it. Even with no work to do, Yuna remained furious. She rushed over, grabbed Lao, and shook him hard. "Lao, because you agree to everything, they treat you like a fool." Even though Lao just felt dizzy and replied that he was fine. But Yuna still felt indignant at her friend's excessive kindness. Suddenly, she had an idea and shouted with excitement, leaning close to whisper a secret in Lao's ear. "Do you want to get out of this village?" "Actually, I found a secret path no one knows about." But their escape plan hadn't even started when an old woman appeared to stop them. "Have you both forgotten all the village laws? We are not allowed to go outside." Despite Yuna's resistance and questions, the old woman firmly blocked the path with her cane and ordered the villagers to lock the girl up immediately. While Yuna was dragged away screaming about how absurd the rules were, other villagers continued to take advantage of Lao's gentle nature. A man casually asked him, "Hey kid, can you help me get some water?" What a pushover. With a naive expression, Lao gently replied, "Yes, sir." Even though they grew up in the same village, Lao and Yuna had 2 completely opposite personalities. While Yuna always longed to break the chains, Lao chose to be content with reality. When asked if he wanted to do anything else for himself, he was silent for a moment before gently answering, "No, I'll help." But ever since his parents passed away, it was the protection and love of the villagers that helped him overcome his loneliness. Lao secretly thought that everyone treated him like family, so he only wanted to repay that kindness. With a sincere look in his eyes, he affirmed, "I love this village and everyone here very much." His words moved the man to tears, and he even wanted to take Lao home to live with him, just to make it easier to take care of him, but Lao politely declined because he wanted to stick to the house his parents left behind. To him, the people here were the most important thing. As for how vast the world outside was, it meant absolutely nothing compared to that peace. Yuna, at this moment, was locked in a bamboo cage in the middle of the village square. She kept shaking the bars and screaming for her freedom, but the old woman only replied coldly, "What a stubborn child. If you were even half as good as Lao, that would be great." Yuna still refused to give in and demanded to know why everyone was strictly forbidden from going outside, since it was not only inconvenient for trade, but also prevented them from exploring the world. The old woman fell silent before revealing a mysterious truth. "Because there are people who hate us." The answer left Yuna shocked. She kept asking who that person was, but the old woman didn't answer, only saying that time would tell everything. Returning to Lao after getting water from the well, he was suddenly hit in the head by something. Looking around, he was surprised to see Yuna peeking from behind a rock, signaling him, "Stay quiet." Seeing her friend escape from confinement yet again, Lao blurted out, "You escaped again." Not only did she feel no guilt, but Yuna proudly boasted that because she had been caught so many times, escaping now was as easy as pie, leaving Lao to sigh and reply, "That's nothing to be proud of." "The point is, Lao, come with me," Yuna said, dragging her friend along. Lao was still a bit hesitant and worried. "If we go out of the village, she will scold us again." But Yuna immediately reassured him, just for a little while. "It's fine." She led him through the thick bushes, excitedly revealing that there was something special she wanted to show him. When the two stepped out of the forest edge, a vast space appeared before them, leaving Lao completely stunned. Yuna pointed to the vast valley with a winding river below. "This is the world outside. It's this massive." Standing before such a majestic scene, Lao could only gasp in amazement. "Wow, it's incredible. Seeing her friend becoming intrigued." Yuna smiled and asked if he knew about the rules of the outside world. No. She opened a book she got from a merchant and started explaining to him that the outside world operated on a system called ranks from explorers and carriers. To healers and bards, everything was clearly classified. Those who reached high ranks were called rankers, not only people but even weapons. Food power and wealth were all tiered. It seemed like everyone in that world followed this system very strictly. Lao marveled, realizing that the outside world also had its own rules and wasn't just chaos. Yuna nodded in agreement. She felt this was much more interesting than the restrictive laws in the village. With eyes burning with passion, she loudly declared her dream. I want to become an explorer, compete with opponents from all over the world, and then one day, become a super cool explorer that everyone respects. Even though Lao was still wary and reminded her about the ban on leaving the village, Yuna had already made up her mind. I don't care. I've decided I'm going to leave this place. She reached out toward her friend, sincerely inviting him. Lao, come with me. Go exploring. Hey, don't go tempting an innocent soul. Before Yuna's unexpected proposal, Lao could only stare in confusion. Yuna insisted that Lao should go out too. Then, remembering back to when they were 5 years old, how Yuna was attacked by a giant bird, and it was Lao who bravely saved her life in Yuna's memory of that day. Lao had unleashed an incredibly powerful blue energy to drive the monster away, yet Lao himself claimed to have no memory of that event at all. Did that really happen? Yuna gestured wildly, insisting with absolute certainty that it did. Something blue had erupted out of nowhere. Yuna looked at Lao with eyes full of trust, confessing that even though he was often spacey, she knew that when things got serious, he was stronger than anyone else. She believed that if he stepped out into the vast world beyond, he would shine even brighter. Yuna beamed, reaching out a hand to her friend and earnestly inviting him. So let's go explore the world together, okay? Both stood silently before the vast horizon where their dreams were beginning to stir. However, Lao kept his head down, hesitant. He softly thanked Yuna but firmly refused, because of his deep love for this village. The answer made Yuna furious. She hit him, scolded him for being a stubborn idiot, and not wanting to care anymore, she turned her back and walked away, not forgetting to leave behind a challenge. Go ahead and live in this village your whole life then. Watching his friend's back fade into the distance, Lao could only tell her to get home safely. He never thought Yuna would actually leave the village, sitting alone in the meadow as the sun began to set. The two words, star rank, kept swirling in his mind. Once the sunset had painted the sky crimson, Lao told himself it was time to head home. But just as he stood up, a strange feeling made him freeze. Looking up at the sky, Lao was terrified to see a gigantic floating island with ancient architecture, hovering right above his head. He stood stunned, unable to believe his eyes. What was that? Suddenly, the island emitted brilliant blue electric currents and fired down a massive, powerful beam of light. He could only scream in horror as he witnessed such a shocking sight. But then the beam of light vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the sky silent, as if nothing had happened. Lao scrambled up, trembling, amazed to realize the giant island had completely disappeared. It left no trace. It came and went as quickly as a gust of wind. He ran for his life through the forest, his heart pounding as if it wanted to jump out of his chest. In Lao's mind, there was only one thought. It's okay, there's no way anything happened. He reassured himself, calling out Yuna's name, his grandmother's, and all the villagers. But as he reached the edge of the cliff, his feet stopped dead at a horrifying sight. The entire village had evaporated, leaving behind nothing but a hollow, eerie abyss. Lao's face went pale, and he gasped in ragged breaths. What is happening? Not believing the reality before him, he wept miserably, calling out for Yuna and his grandmother in vain. His screams echoed, but there was no response. In his utter despair, the memory of Yuna's smile and the villagers' promise to treat him like family flooded back, squeezing his heart. Lao collapsed to the ground, letting out a heart-wrenching scream amidst the blood-red sunset. Everything had been destroyed in an instant. Going insane would be an understatement. He sobbed, asking the heavens why. Why did it have to be this way? Just then, heavy footsteps echoed from behind. A man with a rugged appearance carrying a sword at his hip walked over quietly. He looked down into the abyss with eyes full of regret. He muttered to himself, "Damn it, I'm late again." I could only stand by and watch. Realizing the stranger's presence, Lao looked up with tear-filled, bewildered eyes. The man looked away, trying to suppress a sigh. I know you're hurting, kid, but don't worry, that island is gone now. Hearing the word, island, Lao seemed to snap back to reality. He lunged and grabbed the man's jacket, interrogating him with agitation. The island from before, do you know what happened? Tell me. What happened to this village, to the people? What is that thing? Instead of answering, the man handed him a piece of paper and said coldly, Leave this village. Go to the place written on this. Then you will be safe. Lao wouldn't have it. He grabbed the man's collar and shouted, Tell me I know. His anger made the man snap. Look, the whole village is gone. He insisted that this was not a world a child like him could touch, and then demanded that he forget everything. Turning away to leave, the man gave one last warning. Don't try to look for anything. It's not worth sacrificing yourself to. Standing alone in the rubble, Lao bowed his head. Tears fell onto the parched earth. Yuna's words from years ago echoed in his ears. I know you're spacey, but when things get serious, you're stronger than anyone. Suddenly, a brilliant blue energy erupted from Lao's body, swirling violently like a storm. The man turned back in astonishment, eyes wide, as Lao declared firmly, How could I ever forget? I will go to that island and bring everyone back. Prana is the spiritual energy of all living creatures, a power that everyone possesses but very few are aware of, and can actually control. There are geniuses who use it unconsciously in combat or art, but normally prana is colorless and extremely difficult to see. Only those with an overwhelmingly powerful prana can make it tangible like Lao is doing right now. He has natural-born power without even realizing it. Watching the boy intently while staring into the blue aura engulfing him, the man clucked his tongue deep in thought. So this is a survivor from the village. He calculated to himself that while he wanted to prioritize protecting the boy with that kind of will, in just a few years the kid would surely run off on his own to seek the truth. The boy couldn't hide his curiosity about how this strange world works. The man decisively launched a sword down, embedding it firmly in front of Lao, and commanded, If you want to reach the island, pick up the sword. If I see potential, I'll train you. Lao looked at the sword before him, sweat trickling down his forehead, but his gaze didn't waver. The man also drew his sword immediately. A fierce red aura of prana erupted with killing intent. He roared as he charged, intending to kill. Come at me! With a split second of hesitation, Lao tightened his grip on the hilt, gathered his momentum, and lunged straight at his opponent with wind-tearing speed. The two streams of red and blue energy collided violently, creating shockwaves that shook the entire region. Even though he realized Lao was a total beginner with a sword, the man was still terrified by the pressure the boy was creating in that moment of direct confrontation. He inwardly marveled, admitting, Clearly the kid is a newbie, but this pressure is stronger than anyone else's. The prana from Lao's body exploded. It was so powerful that the man had to gasp. Such extraordinary prana waves. The pressure from the boy made him realize he couldn't underestimate him. Not for a second longer. He told himself, this kid is no joke. After the showdown, the two sat together amidst the somber sunset as the man began to reveal the truth. About the thing that destroyed the village, the Island of Gods, that's what it's called. He explained that this island usually drifts across vast seas, but sometimes it appears suddenly, in completely different locations to wipe out humans or land. With a thoughtful, regretful expression, he blamed himself. I came to stop it, but I was too late. Hearing this, Lao wondered about the fate of the villagers. The man said that according to one theory, those enveloped in that light would be taken to the Island of Gods. Lao naively asked if he could touch that light to find them. But the man immediately extinguished that hope. I already told you it's just a theory. Even if they're still alive, who knows what happened to them? However, he also pointed out a more practical path. There is one shortcut, and that is to climb to the top 10 in the adventurer rankings. Adventurers are experts specialized in investigating and developing unexplored territories. This organization has the largest number of members across all tables. The top-ranked ones are real monsters, he asserted. If you can make it into the top 10 among them, you'll have a chance to reach the Island of Gods. But he didn't forget to warn him about how terrifying that place is, because ever since it was discovered, the Island of Gods has consistently topped the danger zone rankings, a place where almost no adventurer has ever returned alive. Well faced with the boy's iron determination, Aiden asked in a low voice one last time, You still want to go? After a slight moment of hesitation, Lao declared loudly, Yes! Seeing his unwavering will. Aiden decided to train him for 1 year, although he made it clear that the only thing he could teach him was swordsmanship, so after this time, Lao would have to treat him as a stepping stone to climb the adventurer rankings on his own merit. The man then officially revealed his true identity. I am Aiden Rank 1, the strongest human knight. He held out his hand, asked for his name, and the boy replied softly, Lao. After the fateful handshake between the two master and student, Aiden flashed a challenging smile, and warned that he wouldn't hold back at all because, after all, Lao was the first person capable of landing a strike on him. From that moment on, a year of hell officially began. The training sessions were so harsh that the blisters on Lao's hands and feet burst, his muscles ached intensely, and his bones felt like they were being crushed. He constantly had to face giant monsters and suffered severe injuries all over his body. Hard work really does pay off, and true discipline leads to mastery. Throughout that time, Adon never mentioned anything more about the Island of Gods. It seemed he wanted Lao to understand that if he couldn't find the truth on his own, he'd be better off giving up right now. The villagers must still be alive. That intense belief was the only motivation helping Lao overcome all his own limits. With every sword stroke, he constantly questioned the reason why the village disappeared. And what is the true nature of the Island of Gods? To find the answer to everything, Lao was determined to reach the top of the adventurer rankings at any cost. Time passed. 1 year later, standing before a vast valley with a river flowing long at the foot of the mountain, Aiden asked in a low voice, "Are you ready, kid?" With a slight hesitation, Lao replied with absolute confidence, "I've been ready for a long time." Lao closed his eyes halfway to let the memories of Yuna flood his mind. The image of his childhood friend, radiant and full of enthusiasm with the desire to become a great adventurer, surfaced. Clear as day, Yuna had earnestly invited him, "Lao, come with me, okay?" But now, that girl who craved to explore the world had vanished. Lao whispered to himself that now he would be the one to start this journey, to carry the burden for her and fulfill the unfinished dream. At 17, the naive boy from before has now completely transformed, becoming taller and more mature in his rugged adventurer outfit. Seeing the clear change in his student, Aiden couldn't help but exclaim, "You've grown quite tall." Lao just replied gently that this was simply his growth spurt. As a disciple of the strongest human knight, Lao carried with him iron will and skill. Having been forged in hell to forge ahead, the expedition to the Island of Gods officially begins at the Walter Kingdom, where the imperial capital of Chakista is located. Magnificent at the Chakista branch of the Certification Institute, amidst piles of towering books, the girl was fast asleep until she was startled by a call. "Lux, it's almost time." The girl jolted awake and shouted in a panic, "Oh no, I overslept!" As she hurried down the hallway, she was reminded by the colleague walking beside her. "Did you stay up all night researching rankings again?" The girl immediately retorted, "So what? I'm a certifier after all." The woman warned her in a stern voice that precisely because she is a certifier, she must manage her state well, as her position determines the rank and status of so many people. Being a certifier is a profession respected by people all over the world, requiring deep knowledge and fair judgment to update rankings appropriately. This is one of the hardest jobs in the world. Only those truly chosen and who have passed countless tests can take it on, despite the position being one that many dream of. Lux still enthusiastically declared, "Even as a certifier, I'm still very inexperienced. I have to try harder to get promoted." When asked about her goal, the girl dreamed of becoming a dedicated certifier for one, a top-tier ranker. But then she pouted and sneered, "I don't like any rankers. Rankers these days are all just idiots." In Lux's eyes, the fierce competition of the past has now been replaced by nearly fixed top positions, making her work lose its meaning. She clenched her fist firmly, asserting that only with innovation can rankings have value. But only when talent appears can there be change. Seeing the passion of her subordinate, the woman smiled and led her to a large door. "That rising star will be one of these people." The door opened to reveal a hall packed with people taking the Explorer ranking registration test, to Lux's surprise at the sheer number of candidates this year. Her colleague explained that the main reason was that the Azaban Forest had just entered the Dangerous Zone rankings last month, attracting countless people wanting to try their luck. Lux nodded, observing the crowd. "I understand. There are many potential candidates this time. Among them, the most prominent is Audacious, leader of the Red Wolf Mercenary Guild, who currently holds rank 753 in the mercenary world, followed by Eddie Marksman, a genius marksman ranked 402nd from the famous Marksman family, where his father once held rank 2 and his brother is currently at rank 7 with an amazingly fast archery speed. Eddie is expected to have an extremely bright future. Not only that, this exam also attracts countless rankers from different fields, from merchants, knights, sailors, to even guides. "So cool, absolutely perfect," Lux declared smugly. "Hehe, after all, I am a certifier. Just by looking, I can tell what rank they belong to." Lux continued to rattle on about the Explorer Ranker title, something every ranker craves, to be able to enter special territories like the forest. Azaban. Just then, the bell at the reception desk rang, cutting off her flow of excitement. The woman smiled to greet the guest. Standing in front of the counter was Lu. He calmly said, "They told me to come here to register for a ranking." The woman began to explain thoroughly that ranking is a system managed by the Certification Institute with certifiers, sent everywhere to test ability and determine the rank of rankers. Although you can update your rank anywhere, there is a certifier. The initial registration must be done at the Institute. Just in time, the test is about to begin. "Would you like to participate?" Before the woman's invitation, Lu nodded in agreement. "Yes." He quickly filled out the information on the form and paid the exam fee of 3,000 mail. After completing the procedure, the woman gave him contestant number 53 and directed him to the waiting room. As Lou brushed past to enter the exam room, Lux couldn't help but stare at the back of the young man. Unfamiliar, she secretly wondered why in this day and age there were still people who didn't know what the Certification Institute was, making the woman laugh because it had been a long time since she had to explain it from the beginning. At the competition hall, the woman loudly announced the start of the Explorer Ranking Registration Test. The exam will consist of 3 tests. The first is a written exam. Next is the practical, and the final test will be announced later. Whether you pass or not will be based on the total score of all 3 parts. So she encouraged the candidates not to give up until the very last minute. As soon as the written exam began, the atmosphere in the room became extremely tense. Low groans echoed amidst heads scratching and pulling hair. "So hard, the questions are so broad. Time's up," the announcement sounded, ending the tense written exam. The woman collected all the papers and announced, "The practical exam will take place in 2 hours at the forest on the outskirts of town." While the candidates rested, she asked Lux to lend a hand in grading to keep up with the schedule. Lux happily agreed, but when she flipped to paper number 53, she suddenly froze. That was Lou's paper, the young man with the cold gaze she had noticed. Just now, looking at the content inside, Lux couldn't help but gasp, "This!" Hitting her eyes was a sheet of paper with bright red cross marks from top to bottom. From questions about routes to identifying magic beast symbols, Lou answered everything completely wrong or bluntly wrote, "I don't know." Everything was wrong. She sighed in frustration, secretly praying for the country bumpkins who were struggling with this overwhelming memory test. So his written exam is a failure, huh? 2 hours later, the practical exam officially began in a dense valley. The content of the test is treasure hunting, requiring candidates to search for and bring back items on the list. Listed on the wooden board, the score will be calculated based on the rarity of the item in the right column. The higher the point, the greater the rank. The judge also emphasized strict rules. Fighting among candidates is strictly prohibited, and the first person to touch an item becomes its owner. Meanwhile, the crowd of participants begins to brag boastfully about their knowledge, about medicinal herbs or their insect-collecting skills. The moment the start signal echoes, everyone bolts into the deep forest at breakneck speed. Meanwhile, Luke and the examiner watch from afar, observing that with the exceptional movement skills displayed by this year's batch, perhaps half of them will meet the requirements. When asked if she has her eye on anyone, Luke only sighs in disappointment, as she hasn't seen any real talent that truly impresses her yet. Suddenly, a massive figure approaches the submission area. It's Audacus. He brings back Regan antlers worth 120 points to everyone's amazement. Even though the examiner reminds him there is still time to earn more points for a higher starting rank. Audacus nonchalantly replies that his main profession is a mercenary, so he's not desperate for an explorer's ranking. Let the others fight for it, he just needs to pass. Just then, another small kid runs over with an eager look on his face. It's Eddie Maxman. He loudly presents a tail feather from a flock bird with a score of up to 180. Far exceeding Audacus's achievement to the shock of the examiner regarding the item's rarity, Eddie casually brags that this bird is just a common dinner meal, back at his house. The kid's arrogant and cocky attitude makes Audacus, standing nearby, lose his temper. Eddie nonchalantly taunts Audacus, saying that the bird flies at 500 kilometers per hour. So the guy's eyes couldn't even track it. He even sarcastically remarks that the mercenary should just work as a clown instead. Facing such provocation, Audacus roars in anger, wanting to test him. Witnessing this scene, Luke only thinks to herself that mercenaries are often very arrogant about their strength. Suddenly, a strange sound makes everyone look back. Lou is walking along, looming large, dragging the carcass of a giant bear in everyone's shock. He calmly drops the body and asks, "I didn't know how to extract the red bear's gallbladder, so I just brought the whole carcass here. Is that allowed?" The examiner can only stutter in agreement. The red bear's gallbladder is worth 300 points. Other candidates begin whispering about the fact that this kid could single-handedly take down a monster like that. Luke approaches, praising Lou's practical knowledge while not forgetting to bring up his disastrous written exam. When asked, Lou simply replies, since this animal often appears near his village, that's how he knew the answer. The reply makes Luke curious about the village he mentioned. No point in asking about it now. It's already been wiped off the map. A man standing nearby is still shaken, having accidentally witnessed the whole thing, but he cannot find the words to speak. In his memory, the ferocious red bear had charged in to attack, but the moment Lou drew his sword, a flash of blue light moved with terrifying speed. Before anyone could even realize it, the bear was taken down in a single blow. Luke looks at Lou pensively. It seems she has noticed something unusual about this young man. An hour later, all candidates are gathered for the final round. The location is a giant arena deep underground, standing in the middle of the arena. The examiner sternly asks if everyone knows what an explorer should be most wary of, then provides the answer herself. Not magical beasts, but humans. She explains that during exploration, the real threat often comes from bandits and looters. Therefore, combat strength is a vital factor. The final test is a simulated battle where candidates will directly face each other. Even though she insists the goal is only to determine ability, and that winning or losing doesn't matter, the atmosphere remains extremely tense. Eddie secretly realizes the reason the organization kept this a secret until the very last minute was to prevent candidates from cheating in the previous practical test. Old Ginger is truly spicier. That's why they are the masters. Hey, you fight me! A burly mercenary challenges the black-haired man standing next to him. He mocks that during the previous test. The guy only knew how to pick up rocks, then spews insults. I heard the mercenary ranks are full of thugs who like to brag. What are you, some third-rate nobody? Not waiting for the opponent to respond, he roars, intending to crush his rival, but immediately a lightning-fast strike makes him collapse. The black-haired man calmly sheathes his sword, coldly replying, "Sorry, I couldn't hold back my anger." Witnessing that scene, the examiner is shocked. Even though this person didn't pass the previous tests, the strength of a third-grade mercenary in the official rankings is truly a monster that cannot be underestimated. The examiner secretly assesses that candidate Audacus is even more hot-tempered than his appearance suggests, and perhaps only the genius Eddie is strong enough to face him. Just then, Luke approaches and makes an unexpected suggestion. "You know, can I choose the opponents for that guy?" Her eyes are directed toward Lou, the young man who took down the red bear in a single move. After the intense matches of the other candidates, match number 8 is officially announced. Number 27 and number 41 will form a team to face number 53. What kind of game is this, 2 against 1 that's just asking for a massacre? This arrangement makes both the black-haired man and Eddie feel insulted. They roar, "Are you ladies out of your minds? It's been a long time since I've been underestimated like this." Even the examiner anxiously asks Luke if that's really okay. Yet as she smiled with excitement, her eyes shining brightly while looking toward the arena. Perhaps if I'm reading this right, that person is a total monster. The lopsided match between a rookie and 2 well-known rangers started attracting every gaze from the stands. Standing opposite is Audacus, the young captain of the Red Wolf Mercenaries. He is no mere amateur, having single-handedly wiped out the 62nd-ranked Camo Crime Syndicate last year, taking down the boss and 7 high-level subordinates all by himself to build his reputation. Standing gloriously alongside Ao is Eddie Maxman, the young master of the prestigious Maxman Archer clan, rigorously trained by a father who once held the 2nd rank in the world. Eddie is a true genius, having made it onto the rankings since he was 5, with elite skills that match his pedigree. Both of them are incredibly formidable opponents, and the adversary of these 2 monsters is just a young, unknown boy. How could those 2 ever stand such an insult? Under the suffocating pressure of the arena, Lou calmly drew his sword. A brilliant blue prana current began to coat the blade with immense power. As soon as the start shout rang out, Eddie immediately got into his battle stance. He pulled back his bowstring, aiming with the speed of a prodigy. The arrow tore through the wind, but Lou just needed a gentle swipe of his blade to swat it away. Not letting his opponents react, he dashed forward at terrifying speed. Audacus also quickly swung his curved blade to join the fray. The fiery clashes between Lou's sword and his opponent's blade sent sparks flying everywhere. The speed of the battle was so fast that the spectators in the stands could only see blurs. They asked each other in a panic, "Hey, do you see anything?" But they only received a helpless reply, "I can only hear the sounds." Amidst the ear-splitting clashes, Lou remained hyper-focused, his glowing eyes pierced through every movement of his opponents. He continuously unleashed powerful strikes, forcing Audacus to struggle in defense, sweat streaming down his terrified face. Just as Eddie fired supporting arrows from afar, Lou instantly pivoted, performing an lightning-fast arc slash. Every technique seemed as simple as breathing to Lou. The arrows tearing through the air were easily swatted away by him right in mid-flight. The disparity in rank left everyone witnessing it with their jaws dropped in shock. Audacus remarked in horror, "That swordsman is at a rank higher than a knight." Eddie trembled, agreeing that he had never met anyone with such terrifying ability before. Facing the astonishment of his opponents, Lou coldly asked, "Are you 2 also linked to the rankings?" Eddie immediately replied, "I am Archer rank 402. And Ao introduced himself as Mercenary rank 753. Hearing this, Lu whispered softly, "I see. So if I defeat both of you, I'll reach a 3-digit rank immediately." A massive burst of blue prana exploded from Lu's body, radiating like a storm and engulfing the entire arena. Eddie and Ao were completely frozen, only able to gasp in despair. What? How is this guy suddenly emitting such overwhelming pressure? Standing from afar, Luke couldn't help but be shocked as she witnessed this earth-shattering scene. Prana, such a terrifying amount I can see it with my own eyes. Eddie still stubbornly insisted that rankings weren't just based on general level, but that sniper specialization required high precision. He was ranked 78th, yet his arrow had barely left the string before Lu neutralized it easily. In the blink of an eye, Eddie lay collapsed on the ground. Seeing his comrade defeated so quickly, the mercenary could only gasp in shock. Lu's eyes burned bright, his prana releasing an aura that made his opponent's spine chill and sweat profusely in fear. Just as he prepared to swing his blade to retaliate, Lu had already glided past him like the wind appearing right behind him, leaving him frozen because he couldn't keep up with that speed. "Wait, I surrender!" The mercenary hurriedly called out, asking to stop the match. Realizing the massive gap, he made excuses, saying that after this match ended, he still had work to do, and if he were knocked unconscious like that kid Eddie, it would be very troublesome. Seeing that his opponent had given up the fight, Lu calmly sheathed his sword and replied briefly, "Fine." Looking at Lu's retreating back, the mercenary could only shiver, thinking to himself that the boy was truly a monster and couldn't help but wonder about the true identity of this young man. The whole arena erupted in astonishment. No one could believe a young boy could defeat 2 3-digit rankers so easily. The judge loudly announced, "The winner number 53, while everyone was still buzzing with excitement. Luke suddenly ran away from the stands, causing her colleague to be surprised and call out after her. She dashed straight into the secret operations room standing in front of a giant computer screen system and began frantically searching for information. Luke hacked into the exclusive recognition database to learn about contestant number 53, and she was shocked to see the name Lu Tooley, 17 years old. But there was absolutely no prior ranking registration data for him. With such incredible skill, this seemed impossible. She suddenly realized that Lu seemed completely clueless about the registration bureau. Perhaps he had lived in some deep remote mountain area. After thoroughly checking his spotless background, Luke cheered with joy, having found a true treasure. Where has this talent been hidden away all this time? Without hesitating for even a second, Luke rushed out of the operations room, slamming the door and running for her life toward the arena. She shouted, "Lu Tooley, let me be your exclusive certifier." However, she was one step too late. Around Lu, there was already a crowd of other certifiers scrambling, vying for him. "Ask me, will you hire me as your exclusive certifier?" "No, wait, don't you think I'm a better fit?" Witnessing this scene, Luke could only stand, petrified in despair. "Oh my God, I'm a step too late." She angrily cursed the crowd as opportunists for rushing to make offers before even checking his background. Amidst the circle of invitations, Lu blankly asked, "What is an exclusive certifier?" Seizing the moment as he rushed forward to brush everything aside, so she could explain, she enthusiastically clarified that this person was specifically assigned to an adventurer to update their ranking at any time. Instead of waiting endlessly for the usual dispatch and assessment from the association, having an exclusive appraiser would help an adventurer climb the ranks instantly. Insisting that this position was highly valued by top adventurers worldwide, she spoke while pulling a sparkling device from her pocket, identifying it as an exclusive appraiser's tool. The ranking device, or Rander for short, she asserted, was the key. With this, he could grasp the latest information anywhere, anytime to climb the ranks most efficiently. He stood silently looking at the enthusiastic girl before him, then suddenly spoke up. "I have one condition," he said, turning to look straight at the crowd of officials waiting nearby and loudly asking, "Is there anyone here who can help me reach rank 10 as an adventurer?" "Absolutely not." His question left everyone, including her, stunned in disbelief. "If it's that easy, you guys go ahead. I'm going to sleep." The atmosphere immediately turned chaotic. Whispers broke out everywhere. They believed that rank 10 adventurers were all monsters, and while his swordsmanship was excellent to reach that level, that alone was not enough. Without waiting for an answer, he turned and walked away coldly, leaving her stunned and rooted to the spot. Watching the young man's lonely back gradually fade away, she finally snapped out of it, yelled, "Wait!" and hurried to chase after him. She caught up to him just as he stepped out of the association gates, under the fiery sunset, breathlessly asking why he wanted to climb to rank 10. He didn't stop replying in a cold, distant tone, "That's none of your business." Not giving up, she gathered all her courage and declared, "Then make it my business. I will become your exclusive appraiser. I will climb to rank 10 with you, she vowed. Faced with the little girl's determination, he stopped and looked at her with a somber gaze. Then he bluntly refused. I don't want to put a kid in danger. Hey, why do you call me a kid? I'm telling you, watch it, you kid. Being called a child, she shouted in anger. Kid, you say? Before I'm a kid, I am an appraiser. But he remained firm, stating that even if she wasn't a child, he had no intention of hiring her because he didn't want anyone else to be dragged into his dangerous journey, watching his back disappear into the twilight. She clenched her fists, seemingly determined on a new plan, and yelled toward him, I have a job to do. I have a mission I must complete. Even if it costs me my life, I want to accompany you for that goal. Her ironclad affirmation rang out in the late afternoon. Stopping the young man in his tracks, her eyes burned with determination, not a hint of joking, faced with that sincerity. Painful memories of his village being wiped out flooded his mind. He whispered to himself that he must reach that island and bring everyone back. Looking up at the little girl, he replied in a low voice, I also have things I must do. Under the brilliant sunset in front of the association, two souls with separate goals found common ground. She brightened, held out her hand, and introduced herself. I'm Lua. I will help you become a top-tier ranker. He politely shook her hand, confirming his identity, Lao Tu Li. A fated handshake marked the start of a new adventurer party. As night fell, she led him to a fairly spacious and well-equipped inn, enthusiastically introducing it. How is it? Nice room, right? I rented it for a few days. Let's use it as our base. While she was excited about the new base, he just stood quietly observing with a cautious expression. He spoke softly, Thank you, you're professional. In reality, the touching atmosphere from earlier only lasted a few minutes. She sighed to herself, never having seen a trial period. That started with such a weird atmosphere. As it turned out, he was still very guarded, only agreeing to a 1-week trial. His excessive caution drove her crazy, she declared, that she would show all her capabilities this week, to make him the one who bows down and begs her to stay. She even imagined him with sparkling eyes, pleading, Wow, Miss Lua, please be my exclusive appraiser, but responding to that daydream was only his wooden, expressionless face and a blunt reply, That would be great. Oh my God, he really killed the vibe. Looking at her teammate's emotionless face, she could only yell, Don't say it like it's someone else's business. Just then, the Rander device in her apron pocket signaled a notification. She exclaimed, Oh, the test results are in. She quickly pulled out the device and showed him the newly updated leaderboard on the screen. His name, Lao Tu Li, appeared with the rank of 2,728. She excitedly congratulated him. Congratulations on passing the adventurer ranking test, surprised. Rank 2,000 right after registering is an exception. Contrary to her excitement, he muttered, I thought it would be in the hundreds. A comment that left her stunned, asking, Why? He explained with an extremely simple logic, because both of my opponents in the test were in the hundreds, a rank 402 archer and a rank 753 mercenary. That's true. But for someone who fought two such strong guys to be ranked 2,000, that's stingy. She explained that the adventurer rankings have extremely fierce competition, because the number of participants is far higher than other fields. She showed him his detailed stats. Lao Tu Li adventurer rank 2,728, but most shockingly his sword speed rank. Since the number of participants is way higher than in other categories, she hands Lao the detailed stat sheet for Lao Tu Li rank 2,728 adventurer. But the most astonishing part is his sword speed rank. Reaching number 58, looking at these stats, I can't help but exclaim that from a certifier's perspective, this is truly a terrifying talent, and I'm curious about the two previous opponents. I asked if they possessed many different rankings like this. I immediately displayed the info for Audakas and Eddie Maxman as examples. He's not just a rank 753 mercenary, but also holds other positions like rank 521 swordsman, rank 209 special cleaner, or even rank 86 trusted crime boss. Meanwhile, Eddie, besides the title of rank 402 archer, is also a rank 78 sniper and a rank 19 mushroom cultivation expert. Having many rankings means more job opportunities, but Lou flatly declared he doesn't want a job. I realized that even though we just met, I understood part of Lou's character. He wants to climb to rank 10, adventurer by the shortest path, just to reach his only goal, reaching the nobility. I was stunned. Why did he know that secret? I explained that it's the exclusive privilege that only those in the top 10 adventurers can receive. I suggested that after the trial weekends, Lou should tell me his real reason, and in return I'll reveal my own situation to make it fair. Although admitting it is a bit hard to explain to someone new to the ranking board, I still said in a low voice that what I'm pursuing is the dark side of this ranking system. Seeing Lou still looking blank, I quickly changed the subject, wondering about the source of his strength and the extraordinary sword techniques he possesses when Lou calmly revealed that a year ago. He was a disciple of a knight named Aiden, I was so shocked I yelled, Aiden. I couldn't believe my ears when I heard the name Aiden, the man known as the Rank 1 Knight, the strongest human on Earth. I grabbed Lou by the collar and questioned him in utter disbelief, but he just naively replied that Adon introduced himself to him like that. Although I insisted that reaching this level in just 1 year is shocking news, Lou still casually thought that 1 year is a very long time. It left me speechless at his indifferent expression. Talking to blockheads like this? Maybe talking to my own knees would be more interesting. I shouted in astonishment. Aiden is a swordsman famous for not teaching his techniques to anyone. I explained that countless people have been rejected after begging for his instruction. If there were a ranking for refusing disciples, Aiden would definitely be at the top. Rumor has it he does that to pass it on to the next generation of Rank 1 Knights, causing many others to risk their lives climbing ranks just to be noticed by him. I looked at Lou in disbelief and blurted out, "But who would have thought you'd inherit it? Other knights would faint if they knew about this." Seeing Lou naively ask back, "Is he that great?" I roared. "Of course he's at the top, meaning he's the strongest in the world. I can't believe it." I grumbled at Lou's stiff attitude. "Seriously, you're just blanking out again," I muttered. "How were you raised? I have to look at the data again." Just as I checked the device, I muttered in suspicion when I saw the name Tully appear in the registry for the first time. I wondered if this was a fake alias. Memories of the conversation with his master flooded back. When asked what his last name was, Lou also blankly asked, "A last name? What's that?" which made Aiden click his tongue. Thinking it was due to cultural differences, Aiden sternly warned him, "If you want to reach the nobility by the shortest path from now on, tell them your name is Lou Tulidi." He warned that this is very dangerous, but if successful, important clues will find you. Standing before the giant abyss where the village once existed under the sunset, Lou softly replied, "I understand." Returning to reality, I silently realized this definitely wasn't a fake alias. With sad eyes, Lou softly explained, "Tully is the last name of my noble family." Realizing the importance of this name to Lou, I softly replied, "I understand. Thanks for letting me know." The night had grown late. Lou prepared to rest and reminded me, "Let's rest for today. The certifier's work is also done for now." Seeing me still wearing my brown hat, he nonchalantly said, "You should take your hat off." I breathed a sigh of relief as I took off the cumbersome thing, but the moment I removed my hat, Lou froze. He stammered, "You are a girl." Beneath the hat was long, smooth blue hair. I blankly asked, "What?" Seeing my teammate's surprised look, I snapped, "You're only noticing now." Lou could only clumsily reply, "I'm sorry." But that indifference just made me even angrier. I puffed out my cheeks and shouted, "Is sorry enough? Good heavens, I'm a real girl." The next morning in the city of Trakista, sunlight peeked through the bedroom window. I had woken up early and was sitting by the window intently reading the newspaper. Seeing Lou lazily walking down the stairs with a still sleepy face, I greeted him, "Lou, you're up." After waking up more, Lou sat at the table and softly said, "Nothing much. Good morning, Lou." I happily returned his greeting. I began tying up my long blue hair, preparing for a busy day. "Let's go get breakfast." While putting my familiar brown hat back on, I told myself this would be a long journey, but today is the first step. "Lou, let's set up a strategy to reach rank 10. As an adventurer. The two of us went to an outdoor restaurant. While enjoying breakfast, I started explaining, to climb the adventurer rank, you need achievements. Exploration, land, development, and discovery are the basics. I suggested Lou could do volunteer work, but it's best to take on commissions. I explained that many people want to borrow the strength of adventurers, to collect items or investigate. With commissions, you also get paid. Perfect for beginners, you can pick up these commissions at certification centers or guild organizations. Depending on the country you're in, you can accept them just by using this. She excitedly showed off her Rangtel device while talking, but you know how it is. Showing off expensive gear just makes everyone else jealous. After eyeing the compact device in his hand for a while, she remarked, "So it really is a Rangtel, isn't it? Useful, right?" Seeing him start to get interested, she immediately tried to rope him in. "See, if you become my exclusive certifier, you can use it freely. Think it over. Are there any commissions that let you rank up quickly?" She explained that the fastest way was to take on high-difficulty missions, as the Certifier Bureau provides a rough estimate of how much each commission impacts your rank upon completion. He scanned the list of missions on the screen marked with ominous skull icons for danger. He pointed at the top row and said decisively, "I'll take the one at the very top." She curiously checked the details to see what it was. Retrieve a secret treasure from the Rokiana Underwater Temple Rank 7 Danger Zone. As soon as she read it, she slammed the table and jumped up in a panic. She shouted across the restaurant, "No way! You can't do that right now." No matter how hard she tried to stop him, he replied calmly, "How would I know unless I try?" But she was dead set against it. "You don't need to try to know it's impossible," she yelled, slamming the table again full of worry. "Trust the eyes of a professional certifier. This commission is way too hard for you right now. You'll be dead before you even rank up." Ignoring her, he just kept eating and replied calmly, "Even so, let me give it a try. It's the top of the dangerous areas, the island of the vassals, right? You can't just hide from a place like that." Her stubbornness left her feeling helpless. She thought to herself that she had to find a way to convince this guy at all costs. Just then, a deep, warm voice from behind interrupted their argument. "Looks like you're in trouble, kid." She was startled, turned around, and exclaimed in surprise, "Lao!" The man smiled and greeted her. "Long time no see." Seeing her still blankly asking who he was, she immediately introduced him. "This is Lao Bluewood, a top-tier rank 11 adventurer. You know that out of all the adventurer rankings, the adventuring profession has the most people, and those at the very top are monsters you can't afford to underestimate. And Lao is one of those monsters." He quietly calculated, if this man is rank 11, then he only needs one more rank to be eligible to challenge the Island of the Gods. Sensing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to teach him a lesson about real strength, she suddenly had a bold idea. She grabbed Lao's hand and begged earnestly, "This is perfect, Lao. I need your help. Please beat him. Show him what he's dealing with. Stubbornness won't get him anywhere." Soon after, both of them were at a massive underground arena. Lao stepped onto the field and asked casually, "Kept you waiting?" As Lao approached holding a long spear, he explained that since he rarely accepted sparring matches, he had to borrow a weapon. "It's a bit light, but it should be fine." Standing before such a high-ranking senior, he bowed politely. "Lao, nice to meet you." Seeing this, Lao reminded him, "You can talk casually. The adventurer rankings don't really require all that formality." He revealed that she was actually the one who had updated his ranking in the past. Lao didn't hold back his praise, calling her an incredible certifier who not only possessed deep knowledge but was also extremely dedicated to creating the most accurate rankings. "It's a passion I haven't seen in any other certifier. If it's a request from her, I'm more than happy to oblige. She seems to really care about you." Facing the pressure from a rank 11 powerhouse, sweat rolled down his cheek. He could sense the overwhelming power of his opponent. Just by looking, he knew he was strong. "The moment I rush in, I'm going to get skewered by that spear." Seeing him frozen by the killing intent, she worriedly called out his name. She continued to encourage him. "This is a great opportunity. At the very least, you need to know how vast this world really is." Hearing this, his eyes hardened with determination. He replied silently, "If it's about the vastness of the world, I already know." Instantly, a brilliant blue flow of prana erupted, enveloping his entire body like a raging flame ready for the lopsided duel between a rank 2 728 rookie and the rank 11 powerhouse Lao Bluewood. She raised her hand high and clearly signaled the start. Immediately, two shadows collided in a flash. Sword and spear clashed, creating violent sparks and a deafening sound. Lao was stunned to see him move at an unimaginable speed. He silently appraised his opponent's technique. "He's coding his hands and feet in prana to increase his speed. Even for a low-ranked amateur, he's not bad at all." Consecutive impacts shook the entire arena. Lao began to notice something unusual about his opponent's technique and wondered in shock. But this swordsmanship, it can't be. The secret technique of the Kensai school, the sword style taught to only one person in a lifetime. It's impossible. How could it be passed down to a kid like this? Realizing his opponent was distracted, he coldly reminded him, "Seems like you're losing focus in the middle of a fight." He swept past like a ghost, unleashing a sword strike. The power forced Lao to brace himself. Lao calmly declared he still had plenty of energy left, completely opposite to his own expression, which was beginning to show signs of fatigue. Lao was privately shocked, admitting that despite his own wealth of experience in terms of sheer prana capacity, the boy in front of him had completely surpassed him. Moreover, the energy fluctuations from his body had a strange quality he had never seen before. Lao stepped back to create distance and suddenly asked, "What race are you?" Before he could even respond, he insisted, "Don't bother faking it because that peculiar prana fluctuation isn't something that can be achieved through normal means." Lao sighed and then gripped his spear tightly, declaring, "If you don't want to talk, I'll just have to find out for myself through our fight." "Next up," Lao said in a low voice, "I wonder if you can use skills." Confusion washed over him instantly as a heaven-shaking explosion of fire energy erupted. A barrage of blazing spears appeared surrounding Lu in the brilliant radiance of a legacy technique. Looking on from afar, the Blue World adventurer witnessed this overwhelming display of power, her heart seized with panic and concern for her comrade's life. Lu stared intensely at his opponent, cold and focused. He warned that without the proper skills to defend against this, Lu would undoubtedly perish under the barrage. Facing the might of an 11th ranked master, Lu gasped as the fire spears tore through the air toward him. He quickly dodged and unleashed a lightning-fast counter-slash. However, because there were so many, he couldn't block them all and was wounded. Lu regained his composure, his voice dropping as he stated firmly, "That won't work. Ordinary sword skills won't stop this technique." No sooner had he finished speaking than he snapped his fingers and hundreds of blazing fire spears instantly materialized in the air, encircling Lu from every direction. Under the crushing pressure, sweat dripped down Lu's cheek, yet his eyes ignited with determination. In that tense moment of confrontation, memories of his master's teachings, Aiden's words suddenly flooded his mind. Aiden had strictly reminded him, "Lu, you still haven't mastered your prana, but once you do, you will gradually be able to use these techniques." While Lu was still confused and asked what technique, Aiden had already drawn his sword and ordered him to watch closely. Returning to the present, a brilliant surge of blue prana exploded fiercely, coating his entire body and sword. With eyes burning with energy, Lu poured everything he had into unleashing the crescent slash. A colossal wave of energy, a storm wind, surged forth like a deep blue tornado, leaving Lao completely stunned by this sudden eruption of power. Lao gasped in shock. So fast! Lu's speed had far exceeded the normal limit. Lao realized this was a high-speed strike that the naked eye couldn't track. But with the instincts of an 11th-ranked adventurer, he managed to pivot and defend in time. The gap in experience and strength began to show as Lu was repeatedly pushed back. Pummeled by powerful strikes, he was knocked into the air and crashed heavily back to the ground, kicking up clouds of dust. He watched as the young man struggled to get back up. With a gaze full of resolve, Lao said in a deep, admiring tone, "Impressive." Then cold once more, he declared, "But this wall is too high." Instantly, hundreds of burning spears appeared. They locked down the sky, forming a massive formation that engulfed the entire arena. Witnessing this destructive technique, "Sharper." Luke, standing outside, could only watch in horror, fearing for her comrade's life. Caught in the jaws of death, Lu looked up with a stunned expression. Lao stared deep into his opponent. He delivered a final warning, "Don't underestimate the adventurer rankings. How do you think?" "I climbed into that top seat." Under the suffocating pressure of the spears raining down, Lu could only spit out bitterly, "Damn it." A series of explosions erupted, shaking the ground as debris and dust flew everywhere. It completely blocked his vision as the energy storm gradually faded. The scene was left with a deep, scorched crater with spears of light embedded everywhere. Lu lay slumped in the center, completely unconscious and unable to resist. Before the absolute power of the 11th-ranked Master Lao Bluewood strode forward with the poise of a winner. Leaving behind Lu, who lay motionless in the ruined crater, he walked toward Luke. He asked in a low voice, "Satisfied?" Luke realized what he meant and bowed her head slightly, replying, "Yes, thank you." She looked toward Lu with a meaningful gaze, silently reflecting that after such a convincing defeat, he surely realized the harshness of the adventurer's world. Seeing her expression, Lao commented, "You're a smooth talker. You actually believed that boy would win." "Right." Faced with Lao's question, Luke could only blink and admit, "I thought it was possible." Lao mused for a moment and continued, "That faith, is it because he's Adon's disciple?" The remark startled her. "You knew." "With my level of skill, I can tell after just a few moves, can't I?" Lao explained that he had realized it early on. Upon witnessing the high-speed sword style Lu used, he recognized it as the signature technique of the Kenzuru school. The Kenzuru school was a unique legacy, where the strongest swordsman passes skills down through generations of knight adjudicators. Lao analyzed in a low voice, "The fact that an adventurer like Lu inherited it is an extremely sensitive matter. From the perspective of a knight adjudicator, this is as if their life's destined goal had been snatched away by an outsider." Luke clutched her head in worry, realizing the gravity of the situation. "I think I shouldn't let Lu meet future knight adjudicators." Lao nodded in agreement, stating, "That was the best plan because in the worst-case scenario, Lu's life could be threatened by the jealousy of the knight world." He suggested that if he were registered as a knight adjudicator, then everything would be resolved. However, Luke looked at Lu, who was lying unconscious, her eyes turning resolute. That seemed impossible. Luke spoke up, breaking the heavy silence. Actually, my faith in Lu isn't related to the Kensaru school. She revealed the real reason she had bet on this young man. It's because Lu claimed he had landed one effective strike on Adon. Lao was stunned and asked back, "One effective strike on Aiden?" He immediately dismissed the thought. He argued that with Lu's current skills, that was nonsense and impossible. Even though Lao didn't believe it, Luke remained determined to defend her stance. I thought so too, but Lu isn't the type to lie. Lao fell silent, his eyes filled with deep thought. He mused that perhaps there was a special reason behind this story. Even though the Kensaru techniques were surprising, what really bothered Lao was the strange prana fluctuation radiating from Lu's body during the fight. As both of them left the arena, Luke called out after him, "Lao!" Lao stopped his hand gripping his spear. He looked toward the distant horizon and muttered, "That boy might be able to use those techniques too. If he uses them, I might lose." In a hazy memory, Yuna's figure appeared gentle in the small kitchen, humming a familiar melody under the sunlight of the morning. However, that peaceful atmosphere was immediately shattered by his grandmother's shouting, "What are you mumbling about?" She angrily scolded her, calling her a fool, and insisted that it was because of that cursed poem that no one could leave the village. She warned Yuna never to speak of it again. In a hazy state, a warm hand gently touched his forehead along with a belated apology. "Sorry, Lu." Lu jolted awake, realizing he was lying in a hospital bed, his body covered in bandages. From his chest down to his legs, the wounds from his confrontation with Lao still ached, leaving him dazed as he realized he was in an unfamiliar place. "Where is this?" Seeing him wake up, Luke happily approached. "Oh, you're awake." She explained this was the Assessment Bureau's treatment room and noted he had been fast asleep for an entire day. Lu was stunned. "An entire day?" Luke nodded, confirming he had been deep in sleep. It felt as if a string inside him had snapped. According to the doctor, the cause was mental exhaustion that had built up in his heart for too long. With a look full of concern, Luke sincerely advised him, "I don't know what you're carrying on your shoulders, but aren't you rushing things too much?" The image of Lao's light spears raining down flashed in his mind. He quietly admitted, "Maybe you're right." Sensing the atmosphere turn heavy, Luke gripped the edge of the bed. "Lu, I have something important to tell you." She looked straight into his eyes and asked a mysterious question. "Do you know what poetry arts are?" Lu shook his head, admitting he didn't. Luke then explained that poetry arts are a special way of utilizing prana that only certain tribes can use, and even those at the top of the rankings don't have many people who can use them. Lu asked in surprise, "Is Lao one of them too?" Luke nodded, confirming it. "He's a warrior of the Blue World tribe, a people excellent at hunting and living in the southern swamps." She explained that between tribes, there is a tradition of oral transmission through poetry, hence the name poetry arts. It is also closely linked to genetics, so it is usually very difficult for someone to acquire this power by chance. Luke looked straight into Lu's eyes and revealed a shocking piece of information. Lao said you might possess it too. Lu, can you guess why? The question made Lu freeze. In his mind, the blurry image of a girl singing gently under the morning sun suddenly appeared. After a moment of deep contemplation, he quietly replied, "I think I might." Hearing his confirming answer, Luke jumped up with excitement, cheering, "Great!" The girl enthusiastically asserted that poetry arts are a wonderful trait for an explorer, and she became even more certain that with this ability, Lu could absolutely become a top-tier explorer in the future. Not wanting to waste another second, Luke quickly pulled out her device and announced excitedly, "All right, I found a mission that is perfectly suited for you, Lu. The Azaban Forest Survey mission. It's an ecosystem investigation of a forest ranked at danger level 48. 2 months ago, Lu wondered, is investigating the ecosystem just simply surveying animals and such? But Luke turned serious and warned him that the truth was more complex than that. She revealed that recently many people had mysteriously disappeared in that forest. Adventurers who accepted similar missions have all vanished, from those ranked below 1,000 to those in the 800s. They all disappeared without a trace. If you uncover the cause of these disappearances, your current rank of 2,728, I predict, will jump up at least 200 spots. Of course, the risk is much greater. Hearing this, Lu stood up resolutely. Despite his wounds still being bandaged, he looked straight at Luke and affirmed, "I'll take that mission." Looking into her eyes, Lu asked softly, "Because you believe I can do it, that's why you recommended it, right?" Luke did not hesitate to confirm, "Of course," enthusiastically starting the process. "Then let's hurry and finish the mission acceptance procedures." While operating the device, she didn't forget to carefully instruct him on the rules of the Azaban forest, where certain animals are forbidden from being hunted and there are restricted areas. Although Luke promised to go with him to provide support, she still required Lu to remember everything carefully. When Lu asked about the consequences of non-compliance, Luke warned in a serious tone, "Your rank will be dropped immediately. If you work in an unorganized way, your seat is as good as gone." She further explained that no matter how talented an adventurer is, if they disregard or destroy the ecosystem or repeatedly fail missions, their rating points will be significantly reduced. Because the essence of ranking is the trust others have in a person's capability and ethics. Lu pondered and replied, "I see." Immediately after, a notification sound from the device rang out confirming the mission had been successfully accepted. Luke cheered excitedly, affirming this was a new step forward and the first building block for Lu to climb to the top of the adventurer rankings. Faced with her extreme enthusiasm and her call for them to work hard together, Lu only replied softly with a, "Yeah." Meanwhile, in the Azaban forest, where the night was bathed in a mysterious purple hue, a terrifying shadow was committing a cruel act. He coldly choked the life out of a poor man and growled, "Since you've seen me, there's no other way." The victim collapsed to the ground, no longer breathing. The perpetrator stood there nonchalantly as if he had just done something mundane. He looked down on the other person's life, thinking that with a small fry explorer like this, the Assessment Bureau certainly wouldn't bother wasting effort searching. Walking away, he mocked the idea of climbing the ranks seriously as a fool's game. His gaze stopped in front of an iron cage, holding a pure white unicorn. He calculated to himself that just by selling the precious horn of this creature, it would be enough for his rank to jump into the triple digits, easily. The person behind these dark schemes is none other than... It's so obvious the person behind all these dark schemes is Rosso Quen, a black market merchant holding rank 76, wears a polished but sinister look. He arrogantly believes that raw power alone isn't enough to climb the ranks. He justifies his existence as an adventurer by claiming to help those suffering from the unfairness of the current ranking system. Standing next to him is Darken Iris. A rank 672 adventurer with a fierce look, he insists he will never give up this lucrative hunting ground. And he loudly declares he will climb all the way to rank 100 somewhere else. After heading toward the gate of the Azaban forest, Lu gets stopped by the guards for inspection. Calmly, he presents his ID card. The guard takes a look, mumbles, "Rank 2,728, huh? An adventurer. Go on in." Walking through the iron gate, Lu starts explaining to the rookie about the brutality of this world. She says there are about 30,000 people on the leaderboard, but in reality, only about 20,000 are truly active, emphasizing that the adventurer rankings carry a completely different value and are much higher quality than other fields. Only the heavy hitters dare to dream of getting in here. Seeing Lu look puzzled about that value, she explains that a 4-digit rank adventurer here is equivalent to a 3-digit rank on other boards. In fact, the people holding 3-digit ranks here are even stronger than the two opponents Lu defeated in the recent exam. Shaking off the distant thoughts, Lu excitedly raises his fist to the sky and cheers, "Well, then let the adventure begin." Both head deep into the Azaban forest, a dangerous area ranked 48. The surrounding space is covered in a mysterious purple hue and filled with grotesque ancient trees. Lu suddenly stops, his sharp eyes scanning the surroundings before he says in a low voice, "This forest, it isn't normal." His keen sense surprises Lu. "You noticed already." She explains that for veteran adventurers, one look is all it takes to know how dangerous this land is. Lu explains that ordinary people can hardly recognize that danger. That's why the dangerous area ranking system was created. The reason the Azaban forest made it onto this list 2 months ago is extremely simple. Magical beasts exploded in number. They've gone through a population boom. Immediately, a pack of ferocious monsters from giant insects to bizarre-shaped creatures rushes out to surround them. Scared, Lu clings tightly to her friend's shoulder and shouts, "Lu, you have to protect me." Lu calmly draws his sword, his sharp gaze responding, "Leave it to me." Lu lunges into the middle of the monster pack with terrifying speed. A decisive sword strike slices the green monster, bearing its fangs in two. Lu continuously unleashes precise slashes, taking down a swarm of insects and magical beasts in the blink of an eye. The monsters fall one by one before the swordsmanship, mastered by the disciple of the strongest knight. Witnessing that overwhelming scene, Lu can't help but be amazed and asks, "Was that the skill Adon taught you?" Lu nods slightly, confirming that's right. "I've learned a few skills from Adon, but there are still many techniques I can't use yet." As he sheathes his sword, he says that his second skill will be ready to use soon too. Suddenly, heavy tremors ring out, making the ground shake. From the shadows, a colossal creature with glowing red skin emerges. It is a Brad talk. The one holding rank 126 on the dangerous magical beast leaderboard. Lu assesses the situation. Things are getting pretty dangerous. He focuses his energy, letting a deep blue aura of prana explode violently, enveloping his entire body and rising high like a pillar of light in the deep forest. Lu pours all his strength into one point and bellows cross-slash, unleashing a giant X-shaped strike carrying destructive power. It pierces through the beast's massive body, taking it down on the spot. After the attack, Lu realizes the situation isn't settled and mumbles, "That was a failure." Seeing the monster still trudging forward, Lu screams in panic, "What the heck do you think you're doing?" Instead of continuing to fight, Lu suddenly grabs Lu and runs for his life. Seeing a bottomless abyss right in front of them, Lu cries out in terror, "Lu, the cliff!" Without a moment's hesitation, Lu simply replies with one word, "Jump." Then he grabs her tight. Before she can even collect herself to protest, they both leap into the deep abyss. Her scream echoes throughout the air. As they free-fall between the sheer cliffs, Lu shows off his masterful movement skills, repeatedly jumping and clinging to massive ancient tree branches to reduce the impact of the fall. When they land safely, Lu is so dizzy her head is spinning. Panting, she scolds, "If you were going to jump, you should have told me." But in the face of her teammates grumbling, Lu just nonchalantly explains, "Sorry, Adon's training was usually like this, so I'm used to it." Lu can only sigh in frustration, unable to imagine just how insane of a training regimen he must have gone through. The two continue to head deeper into a place, where the space suddenly becomes shimmering with magical blue lights radiating from the canopy. Standing before this mystical scene, Lu softly exclaims, "This place is..." And Lu excitedly affirms, "This is the area that needs investigating." After the Azaban forest was placed on the dangerous area list, the ecosystem investigation was restarted. About 80% of the investigation is complete, but 20% remains a mystery. That 20% is right here where monsters are erupting in massive numbers and we are witnessing strange creatures from purple birds to winged beasts and glowing plants. Lao couldn't help but be amazed, standing there stunned. When Luke gently called out to him, Lao replied in a deep, thoughtful tone, "I've never seen animals or plants like these." Standing in the midst of this surreal landscape, Lao suddenly realized this was the very adventure that Yuna had always craved and invited him to join. Suddenly a strange noise came from the bushes. It made Lao immediately alert. He was about to draw his sword when Luke panicked and stopped him. "Lao, wait!" From the thicket, a massive white wolf with a brilliant blue horn on its forehead emerged. Luke looked at it stunned and exclaimed, "This magical beast." Standing before the strange creature that had just appeared, Lao asked quietly, "I'm not allowed to fight it." Luke immediately stopped him in a panic. "Of course not!" She quickly pulled out her scanner to check its data and was shocked to realize this was a royal unicorn, an extremely rare species classified as a Tier 4 creature. And it's on the verge of extinction. It's on the red list. Touching it means a 5-year prison sentence easy. As she moved closer, Luke realized the creature was in pain from a large wound on its leg. She felt heartbroken. "It's hurt. Let me take care of it." Lao wondered if she could actually heal it. As Luke gently examined the wound, she explained that because adventurers often get hurt, she had learned some basic first aid skills. She was the one who had bandaged Lao after all. After looking at the weak eyes of the small creature, Luke decided firmly, "Lao, let's set up camp here for today. As an appraiser, I can't just leave this little guy behind." Faced with her determination, Lao just replied gently, "All right." Luke added, trying to make sure Lao didn't feel left out, "If you're wondering, protecting this royal unicorn is basically like an ecological survey. Don't get the wrong idea. It's not that I'm prioritizing it over you or anything." Lao just smiled and replied that he understood and didn't mind at all. As night fell, the two of them set up camp by the fire. Under the branches of a massive ancient tree, in contrast to the quiet of the camp, Lao quietly stepped aside to a corner to continue training. Under the moonlight, a brilliant blue prana current erupted. It covered his sword and his arm. Lao's gaze turned icy, focusing all his spirit on a single point. He called out in a deep voice, "Lotus Strike!" Immediately, a flurry of wind-tearing sword strikes was unleashed at terrifying speed. Despite his best efforts, Lao had to bitterly admit that it was useless. He collapsed onto the grass in extreme exhaustion, his sword slipping from his hand. The image of his defeat against Lao and those searing lances of light still haunted his mind. Facing the harsh reality, Lao could only mutter to himself in bitterness, feeling completely powerless. Looking up at the shimmering night sky, he understood that in his current state, he couldn't make it to the island of the gods. Lao reached out his hand as if to touch his distant dreams, a single burning desire boiling in his heart. "I have to become stronger." He suddenly remembered what Luke said about Lao noticing something special about him. Lao had said, "You have that technique too." Sitting cross-legged in the night forest, Lao softly repeated the technique, trying to feel the mysterious energy hidden deep within his body. Time passed, and as the dawn began to break, Lao was suddenly awakened by Luke's excited shouting. Lao rushed over and asked, "What is it?" He saw that Luke was looking at the unicorn, which was suddenly growling. The snow-white beast was now standing firmly on its feet. Seeing the clear change, Lao remarked, "It's stronger now." Luke explained that the recovery ability of a royal unicorn is very strong, so as long as it is treated properly, it will recover very quickly. She noted that because this is a juvenile, it should have been very friendly toward humans, but this excessive caution proved that its wound was caused by humans. She told Lao to look closely at the blue horn. There was a sharp slash mark, clear evidence that it had just been attacked by poachers. The horn of a royal unicorn was considered a panacea that could cure any disease. This led to large-scale poaching, causing them to fall onto the list of critically endangered species. Even with the bans in place, demand from the underworld still kept them being hunted ruthlessly under the name Unicorn. Suddenly, the beast growled and lunged at Luke, startling her, but Lao was quick as lightning, drawing his sword to stop it. An icy gaze and the pressure from his sword made the monster immediately tremble and recoil in fear. Frightened by Lao's presence, the unicorn turned and ran off into the deep forest. Seeing Luke about to chase after it, Lao calmly asked if she really wanted to do that. Luke insisted that even though it had recovered, its wounds were not fully healed. Furthermore, finding out why this species appeared in the Azaban forest was part of her biological survey mission. Lao quietly adjusted his red scarf, preparing to embark on the search. Luke worriedly told him to be careful, as the poachers might still be lurking somewhere in the forest. Hearing the word poachers, Lao stopped and asked a very pragmatic question. "If I defeat them, will my ranking go up?" Luke was a little surprised, but nodded, confirming that depending on the opponent's skill, a rank increase was entirely possible. "I see. Understood. I'll defeat as many as I can." Lao decided firmly and darted off to track it. However, the beast's speed was so great that he lost its trail for a moment. He could only determine that it was heading in this direction. Suddenly, an arrow flew from nowhere, forcing him to dodge. As he landed, a stranger attacked him, shouting a threat. "Your luck has run out, poacher!" "You caught us in a bad mood?" Two swords clashed fiercely. Lao focused all his energy to deal with the aggressive attacker. Seeing the special energy coming from Lao, the stranger was stunned. The color of this prana! Amidst the tension, a loud shout rang out. Lao froze, recognizing the familiar voice, while his opponent also lowered his weapon and held up his hands in a gesture of truce. "A truce?" Lao asked, bewildered, wondering who it could be. From the tree canopy, a familiar figure emerged. It was Eddie and Ao, his old rivals from the exam. They were acquaintances, so they almost ended up fighting, Back to one day after the exam. The adventurer ranking registration was buzzing with activity. In the magnificent certification hall, the crowd was still hustling and bustling. Everyone was moving about with their own plans. Approaching the reception counter, the mercenary Ao spoke up clearly. "I want to accept a quest." The receptionist quickly acknowledged him and asked, "Yes, what rank of quest would you like to take?" "Adventurer rank," Ao replied in a low voice, but right at that moment. Hurried footsteps sounded, followed by an enthusiastic greeting. "Hey, it's me!" Eddie, the young archer, had just arrived and cut in. "I'm here to accept a quest." The two of them were shocked to run into each other, caught by surprise. Then they both stood silently by the hallway window in an extremely awkward atmosphere. After a long silence, they both spoke at the same time to break the quiet. "You." The tension began to escalate as neither wanted to back down. Ao snapped, "You go first." But Eddie wasn't about to give in, retorting, "You go first." Finally, Eddie sighed in frustration and cut straight to the point. "Have you looked into the swordsman who took us down yet?" Mentioning Lao, Ao shook his head. "Yeah, but I couldn't find any information at all. It's hard to believe, but it's like he hasn't even had a rank until now." "Forget it, why are you still so obsessed with him?" Eddie hung his head. "Even though it's like this, I'm still called a prodigy in the archer rankings, you know?" He bitterly confessed that it was because of Lao that his pride had been deeply wounded. The feeling of being overwhelmingly defeated by a nobody who didn't even have a ranking. Benye was truly too big of a shock. Ao just remained silent and deep in thought. A while later, when he returned to the guild hall, the members of his mercenary squad were already waiting and greeted him in unison. "Good work, Captain." As Ao stepped into the guild hall, the members swarmed him excitedly, asking, "How was the adventurer ranking registration?" He replied calmly, "I've registered." The whole mercenary guild cheered in excitement because from now on, their area of operation would expand. A girl in the group even joked, "If it's our captain, he must have made the other candidates suffer right." Facing the cheering Ao just replied gloomily, "Not really." The mercenaries carelessly laughed out loud, thinking that holding back his power was the hardest thing for someone with a triple-digit rank like him, and surely he couldn't have lost to a rookie. But their boss had lost to a rookie, which was the painful part. Suddenly, Ao slammed his hand hard onto the table, making everyone freeze. He quietly stood up to the astonishment of his subordinates. The more he thought about it, the more Ao gnashed his teeth in resentment, remembering the recent match. In his mind, the image of Lao appeared haunting him along with that brilliant blue prana. He bitterly realized, that guy didn't even look at me. Ao's eyes burned with indignation mixed with wounded pride, as if he only saw him as a stepping stone. He turned to order his team. From tomorrow on, triple the training load. This sudden decision shocked everyone, and they cried out, "Triple!" Ao asserted. Once they had committed to the adventurer ranking, they would have to face unprecedentedly harsh missions. He clenched his fist, clearly declaring, "This world is much larger than we thought. I will also train seriously." Turning back to look at Eddie, Ao said in a low voice, "I am also hurt just like you." Although he didn't intend to focus too much on this ranking at first, Lao's appearance had completely changed his mind. Eddie was currently ranked 6,725 among adventurers, while Ao was ranked 6,301. Both were shocked to realize the vast gap. When Lao's ranking was processed, the person who had defeated them was sky-high at position 2,728. "A difference of about 4,000 ranks from us can be closed in the blink of an eye," Eddie confidently asserted. Looking at the ranking, Ao also nodded in agreement. "Looks like we're on the same page." Both decided to head to the notice board to receive new missions. Ao suggested a forest that had just been added to the dangerous area list, and Eddie immediately guessed it. He said, "You're talking about Azaban Forest, right? The more dangerous the place, the easier it is to climb the ranks." Right after that, both were present at the edge of the forest and unexpectedly encountered Lao. Standing across from his two old rivals, Lao's face remained expressionless. Suddenly, a huge sound rang out, shaking the entire forest, making Eddie and Ao jump in fright. Not wanting to waste time on explanations, Lao coldly declared, "Talk later." He decisively sheathed his sword. Then he dashed off like an arrow. Eddie followed closely behind and pressed to confirm, "You want to protect that magical beast, right?" Lao just replied briefly, "Yeah." Watching Lao's incredible movement speed, Eddie secretly assessed he runs pretty fast. To help the rookie move more effectively, Eddie offered guidance. "When moving in the forest, you should take advantage of the rough terrain like this." Finishing his sentence, the young archer jumped powerfully, gliding through the canopy artfully. Lao immediately observed and followed suit. He stomped his feet to gain momentum. Then he launched forward with a blue prana aura surrounding him. But just as Lao landed, Eddie shouted a warning, "Lao, you're being attacked by a magical beast!" Lao was startled and surprised, as a giant creature with a distorted shape, sharp teeth, and glowing tentacles suddenly emerged from the ground. The deep purple monster looked repulsive, opening its wide, gaping mouth. It intended to swallow everything. Both Lao and Eddie immediately took a defensive stance. Facing the ferocious magical beast blocking his path, Lao quickly swung his sword, slashing off a tentacle that was lunging at him, but he realized he couldn't get any closer because of the opponent's massive size. If he only slashed from a distance, he feared he would be dragged in and swallowed whole. Suddenly noticing the royal one-horned beast stuck in the monster's tentacles, Lu shouted, asking if they could create an opening. "Aim for its eyes," Eddie urged, then shouted to Lu, "Keep running!" Eddie fired an arrow that struck the monster right in the eye, making it shriek in agony. Seizing the opening, Eddie commanded Lu to aim for its legs. Lu put all his strength into his legs, leaping high into the air with cold, determined eyes. As he prepared to strike the massive beast, Eddie screamed, "Get the royal one-horned beast out of there with you!" Lu quickly grabbed the little beast, held it tight, and bolted out of the danger zone. Then the final blow was left to Ao, who swung his sword and sliced through a massive ancient tree. And then, the heavy tree trunk crushed the monster's body. As the dust cleared, the ferocious beast was now nothing more than a lifeless husk, lying deep in the forest. Lu stood firm on the ground, still clutching the rescued beast tightly in his arms. Witnessing that display of teamwork, Eddie couldn't help but praise them. "Not bad. Your commanding was pretty good." Ao replied nonchalantly, "I'm just used to commanding my subordinates." That ticked Eddie off, and he snapped, "Who's your subordinate, huh?" Eddie reminded them that even though Ao's swordsmanship was excellent, it wasn't enough to reach the top 10 on the adventurer rankings. He insisted that if he wanted to rank up, he had to learn more than just sword fighting. A moment later, Luke rushed over, panting heavily, and yelled, "Lou, I'm so sorry I'm late!" Seeing Lou standing with Eddie and Ao alongside the one-horned beast, she was stunned by this unexpected reunion. Turns out it was all a big misunderstanding. Lou had mistaken the two of them for poachers. But very quickly, the misunderstanding was completely cleared up. Even though things had settled, Luke still stood there with her arms crossed, looking stern at the mercenary Ao. Even if it was resolved quickly, Mission attacking out of nowhere like that is not okay. I should probably report this on your record. Seeing the look of terror on his face, she burst out laughing. Just kidding. You did stop in time after all. But next time I really will report you. Ao just broke into a cold sweat and mumbled, understood. I'll be more careful. Right after he leaned in and whispered to Lou, Hey Lou, why on earth are you carrying that special identification device? Lou answered casually. I heard it makes it easier to rank up. While struggling to climb over a fallen tree, Ao said in a low warning voice, Ranking up is easy, but you'll be under constant surveillance. There's no profession as rigid as those identifiers. Just the travel back and forth between villages takes all day. Seeing that Lou still seemed clueless, Eddie stepped in and poured cold water on the idea. That's probably not going to happen. You're just being used for their convenience. Do you know why those identifiers want to be exclusive? Because that's the only way they can get promoted. Hey, don't go bad-mouthing each other's professions like that. Eddie continued to analyze the truth behind Luke's enthusiasm. Identifiers get promoted based on their performance in updating the rankings. In other words, someone like you who's climbing the ranks like crazy is their easiest target. The young archer didn't forget to warn Lou to be on guard, saying that girl was just using him as a stepping stone to get promoted. Lou went silent. The words, get promoted, echoed in his mind, along with the memory of Luke declaring, I have something I absolutely must do. Looking at her back, Lou wondered to himself if getting promoted was really a mandatory goal that she had to achieve. After all, her genuine acts of care didn't look like someone who was just scheming. Meanwhile, Luke breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that the little beast's royal horn was still intact. Suddenly, the beast nuzzled up to her, causing her to scream in surprise. Seeing the whole group standing together, Luke smiled and remarked that it looked like everyone had become friends. But Ao immediately denied it, insisting that this was just the only safe place to stand. Seriously, if you're on your own out there, you're toast. Eddie grumbled, calling the wolf ungrateful and not cute at all. Luke quickly stepped in to defend it, explaining that the animal was acting scared because Lou was emitting an incredibly terrifying aura. Lou just looked confused, replying that he hadn't done anything. Suddenly, Luke noticed the giant purple monster corpse lying nearby. She realized it was a frost beast. Moving closer to examine it, Luke explained that this was a type of monster they had never seen in this area before. Based on her knowledge, she noted that this species usually lived in colder regions, so it made some biological sense for it to be here. However, her expression suddenly became serious as she stated that it had never been discovered in the Azaban forest before. Luke asked Lou to record the existence of this monster in the system immediately. Once Lou agreed, Luke began to explain her ecological survey mission and asked curiously, he asks about why the other two are here. Ao and Eddie stammered to explain that they were on a similar mission commissioned by the Appraisal Bureau. Narrowing her eyes in suspicion, Luke wondered if such a commission actually existed. What kind of survey requires hiring both mercenaries and archers? Very quickly after that, she had seen right through the hearts of these two guys. When she firmly stated that it was because they were influenced by the tower that they were rushing to accept commissions to rank up as adventurers, Luke exclaimed excitedly, That's right, Luke, I have good news for you. The results shown on the screen left everyone stunned. From position 58, Luke had leaped to rank 26 in the world for sword speed. Luke asked triumphantly, Well, happy now? Luke replied softly, I am happy. But deep down, he was secretly amazed because the technique was so fast that the naked eye could barely see it yet. Luke could still see it. She casually explained, That's the intuitions of a professional appraiser. At the very least, I have to know that much. Looking at her confident expression, Luke suddenly wondered if Luke was truly an extraordinary person. Seeing his bewildered look, Luke puffed out her chest proudly, only just realizing that now, right at that moment, Eddie and Ao approached with curiosity. Which category increased? I'm so curious, too. With Luke's permission, the two leaned in to look and couldn't help but be shocked by the absurd numbers appearing on the screen. Eddie cursed silently. That bastard. And Ao felt those numbers were truly annoying. In the heavy silence, Luke suddenly turned to look straight at his two former rivals with a very determined gaze. He spoke loudly. I have something to tell you two. Teach me the strength that transcends swordsmanship. Luke sincerely admitted that Eddie's use of the terrain and AU's tactical guidance during the battle with the magical beast just now had helped him a lot. Eddie was amazed that Luke could mimic his movements immediately. As the leader of a mercenary group, Owl began to explain that such instructions were deeply ingrained in his instincts to avoid losing his subordinates. He insisted that when fighting as a group, formation and order were the most important things. Every step must be calculated backward from the position of the one delivering the finishing blow. Are you really interested in this stuff? Owl looked at Luke with skepticism. He thought that with his already extremely powerful sword technique, Luke surely didn't need his input. However, Luke looked straight at his opponent and affirmed firmly, "No, I need it. Tell me more." His eagerness made both Owl and Eddie fall silent in amazement. Finally, Owl began to instruct that when moving in the forest, the prerequisite is to use all 5 senses. He meticulously showed Luke a few coordination tricks, starting from dividing the front and back line positions reasonably. Watching from afar, Luke gently stroked the one-horned beast and thought to herself, Luke is really trying to change. She realized that her decision to let him fight with the guy earlier was completely wise. However, Luke was worried about the appearance of those poachers along with countless unidentified magical beasts are making the Azaban forest too gloomy, she felt. This mission seemed to have exceeded the group's capabilities, but right now, the group did not know that they were being watched. Russo Crew narrowed his eyes and asked, "What's going on?" Darkon Iris stepped forward to report that while tracking the escaped unicorn, he had encountered some kids. Russo calmly adjusted his glasses and made a cruel remark about the organs. "The kids are still fresh, so they can be sold for a very high price." Darkon, with his muscular build and purple killing intent, agreed that although not equal to a unicorn, they might as well catch the whole bunch. He smiled. Sinisterly, he asserted that once you dare to step into the beast's territory, being torn apart is only natural. Eddie returned to the forest to master survival skills. Al reminded him that using all 5 senses is not easy. Eddie added that besides sight and hearing, smell, or even taste also need to be trained. Only then can it be applied in combat, Luke replied thoughtfully. I understand now. Eddie judged that this forest was the ideal training ground because the smell of plants and animals here is extremely intense. Ao admitted that a mercenary used to the smell of blood, like himself, would have difficulty distinguishing other scents. Conversely, Eddie asserted that he could now accurately determine how many beasts were around. Then he asked Luke to use his prana. The young guy instructed Luke to think of prana as a type of liquid talent, focusing his awareness on the sense he wanted to sharpen to be able to feel it. Immediately, Luke focused his consciousness, causing a brilliant blue prana current to explode violently surrounding his body. The massive amount of energy released left Ao and Eddie shocked and stunned, because they didn't expect it to be that large. Amidst the dazzling light, Luke closed his eyes tightly, gathering all his spirit to make every sense as sharp as a blade. The deep blue prana current swirled like an energy storm, lighting up a whole area of the dark forest. From the top of a high cliff, a mysterious figure stood silently observing the whole incident from afar. Suddenly, a wicked face with purple eyes full of killing intent appeared threateningly, as if targeting the expedition group. Sensing the looming danger, Luke's eyes flashed. He quickly drew his sword into a fighting stance to protect Luke and the one-horned beast behind him. Luke suddenly froze when he realized someone was tailing him at a very close range. Suddenly, a punch carrying massive purple energy descended from the darkness, sending him flying through ancient tree trunks. Witnessing the incident, Luke, along with Eddie and Ao, could only scream his name in horror amidst the ruined forest. From the smoke and dust, a man with braided hair and glowing purple eyes slowly stepped out, mocking that Luke's leaking prana was the disgusting thing that had led him there. Eddie and Ao immediately drew their weapons, staying alert, but Lou shouted in a rush, stopping them as she realized the opponent was none other than Duncan Iris. Shocked, she confirmed he was a rank 672 adventurer, a man possessing 3-digit power that completely overwhelmed the entire group. Duncan arrogantly admitted his reputation, bragging about how he had once nearly touched the 2-digit ranking. A man of prestige before being miserably demoted for committing a crime. Another figure was slowly approaching from behind. The one who had just appeared was Rosso Gruen, and he was panting heavily. While complaining about Duncan's excessive speed, his gaze settled on Lou with a look of disdain, casually declaring he didn't care who she was or what her status was. But Lou immediately saw through him and exposed the old man's true identity. Russo Gruen, the man ranked 76th on the black market registry. So much for being a big shot. He turned out to be just a smuggler. Russo Gruen curled his lip in a sinister smile. He seemed quite amused by the young lady's extensive knowledge, chuckling, "Ho ho ho, quite knowledgeable, aren't you?" Even the criminal registry was something she knew about. He began to lecture them on the hierarchy of the criminal underworld, a system that reflected the severity of one's actions. From petty thieves to the lists of cold-blooded mass murderers, these unofficial rankings were created by users. They self-managed to operate the underworld outside the control of the Bureau. Sometimes high-quality lists were even bought by the Bureau themselves, if they weren't too unethical. Ignoring the old man's long-winded explanations, Duncan Iris kept his glowing purple eyes fixed with desire on the one-horned beast lurking behind a tree, a unicorn. "Oh, there it is. I've been looking for you for a while now." He approached with a crazed expression that made the beast tremble in fear. Without a second of hesitation, Lou immediately lunged out to block the path of the ferocious adventurer to protect the little creature. She shouted in fury, "Duncan, why are you running around with that man?" Duncan replied nonchalantly with a tone of pure pragmatism, obviously for the money. "Is selling your honor and dignity for money really worth it?" His answer left Lou shocked and disappointed. She demanded, filled with anger, "You're partnering with him just for money. With your skills, you could be earning money the right way." Duncan smiled cryptically, signaling her not to jump to conclusions because money wasn't his only goal. He revealed he was working with Rosso for two reasons: to sell goods to him and, more importantly, to buy goods from him. Lou asked, confused, and Duncan's face suddenly turned incredibly menacing. He leaned close to her ear and whispered a challenge. "You know about this, right? That registry appraisal stuff, if you truly desire it, it can be bought completely." The blatant insult to the system she cherished made Lou tremble with rage. She clenched her fists, her eyes glowing with hatred as she stared straight at the man in front of her. "How dare you insult the ranking system right in front of an appraiser?" Suddenly, a figure lunged to attack, startling Duncan Iris, who used his hand to block the blade. Standing behind him with his bow drawn, Eddie Maxman declared firmly, "Our mission is to patrol the Azaban forest. We cannot let a dangerous person like you walk around freely." Duncan looked toward the young archer with purple, murderous eyes. Witnessing the intervention of the young adventurers, Rosso Gruen clicked his tongue, annoyed. How troublesome. The old man coldly ordered his subordinates, "Take care of them just like always." Instantly, a brilliant purple flow of prana exploded with world-shaking power from Duncan's body. Ignoring everyone else, he darted forward like a ghost. Aiming straight at Ao, he roared, "Die!" Facing imminent danger, he was completely helpless in the moment. Death touched his eyes. A beam of blue light struck with unbelievable speed. Lou had appeared just in time, using her sword to block Duncan's attack right in front of Ao. Blocked from landing the finishing blow, Duncan Iris stared stunned at the person who had just appeared. He roared in astonishment, "Who the hell are you, huh?" With sharp, glowing blue Brenna eyes, Lou coldly retorted, "That's exactly what I should be asking you." The two energies, blue and purple, collided violently, creating a terrifying prana explosion. Enveloping both of them in the ruined forest, Lou stood firm in the eye of the storm, his brilliant blue prana surging powerfully to counter the suffocating pressure from Duncan Iris. Witnessing Lou still standing firm after the direct hit, Lou shouted from behind in relief. "Lou, are you safe?" He answered softly, "Yeah," but his eyes never left the opponent. Not for even a second. Rosso Gruen watched with a sinister smile, casually asking toward Lou, "Is this kid a poacher?" Seeing the royal one-horned beast, the old man triumphantly confirmed he had been searching for it for a long time. Lou gritted his teeth, thinking to himself that there was no doubt. It was definitely this old man and Duncan who were behind everything. Not giving the opponent time to scheme, Lou poured all his strength into his sword, shouting, "Wind strike!" A storm of deep blue energy exploded. The powerful attack forced Duncan Iris to recoil in horror. He screamed in surprise, "Wait, that kid is using Brenna!" Even after creating a shocking explosion, Lou remained calm, thinking, "Stubborn guy. My attack didn't hit." Amidst the thick clouds of dust, the stern voice of his master Aiden suddenly echoed in his mind. Memories of those days of grueling training on the sheer cliffs came back. Back then, Aiden had warned him to be careful when encountering someone who knew how to use Brenna. He explained that Lou was a special case because normally only when one reaches a master level in a field, just like swordsmanship, weapon arts, or any other discipline, it is only through deep, dedicated study that a person can truly awaken their hidden potential. That is called prana. Aiden insists that anyone who has grasped prana possesses power that far exceeds that of a normal person. Remembering Master Aiden's teachings, Lou understands that those who can control prana are masters in their own right. In the midst of the intense standoff, Lou hurriedly checks the rankings and shouts, "Lou, watch out, Duncan is ranked 12th in boxing. Then be careful. If he hits you, you'll be sent to the afterlife before you know it." The number 12 leaves Lou stunned. As he continues to read the opponent's staggering list of achievements, he finds out he is also ranked 4th in beast taming, 19th in grip strength, and 7th in weightlifting. Her face contorts in fear as she realizes the massive power gap. She screams in desperation, "His strength is on a world-class level. Don't go near him." Danken Iris looks extremely annoyed at having his information dug up. He grumbles, spouting off other people's information like that. "It's so annoying when there's someone recording things on the sidelines. Looks like I'll crush you first." But to Lu's shock, Danken lifts a massive tree trunk with one hand. Then he throws it straight at the two of them with a bloodthirsty roar, "Die!" The giant trunk tears through the air as if to crush everything in its path. Lu immediately swings his sword, slicing the incoming trunk in half to shield Lu. His breath is heavy, but his eyes still burn with the determination to protect his teammate. "Your prana is truly strange." Russo Gruen narrows his eyes, observing the blue light around Lu, then coldly orders Danken Iris, "Danken, grab this one. He'll definitely fetch a high price." Following the old master's order, Danken wears a twisted smile, his purple eyes glowing with murderous intent. He roars with excitement, "I'll catch him just like we planned. Of course, if he's still alive." Just then, Eddie shouts from high up in the treetops, "You'd better not forget about us," and continuously fires wind-piercing arrows at their opponent. However, Danken nonchalantly swipes them away with his bare hands like they were flies. He looks at Eddie with contempt. "Are you even worth remembering?" Seizing the moment the opponent is off guard, Eddie throws a smoke bomb, creating an explosion of haze that makes Danken gasp in surprise. "Now push him back." Ao's shout rings out through the smoke. Danken roars in a fury, "Don't toy with me, I'll wipe you all out!" He pours all of his purple prana into a ground-shattering strike. Creating a massive energy explosion that crushes the surrounding forest, the dust clears to reveal a deep crater. Danken narrows his eyes, looking around, then clicks his tongue in regret, because the prey has disappeared. Russo Gruen approaches, tapping his cane on the ground, and warns, "Danken, that was too dangerous. What if you had been killed?" Meanwhile, in the distance, Lu is holding the one-horned beast, tightly running for dear life with the adventuring party through the foliage to escape. Panting as he runs, Eddie says, "That was impressive. You understood what I meant. You can't take him down with brute force. I think the best option is for everyone to retreat." Lu is silent, but in his mind he is constantly struggling with an absurd reality. That guy, he is ranked 672nd in the rankings. An adventurer, someone that strong, is only ranked 600th. The gap in level makes his heart tighten. He unconsciously squeezes his hand, making the one-horned beast in his arms tremble in pain. The monster lets out a pained cry. Then it leaps from Lu's arms, baring its fangs and growling in alert. Lu raises his hands apologetically. "Sorry." Once they reach a safe clearing, the group temporarily stops to catch their breath. Looking at the horizon, Lu calls out to Lu, and with eyes burning with hatred, she declares her ultimate goal. It seems there is still one more thing to do. "Russo Gruen, that guy's a tough nut to crack." "Because he's as slippery as an eel." Lu mentions the goal of capturing that bearded man. Lu wonders why they have to take such a risk. With eyes burning with determination, Lu declares, "Because of my own personal goal." Witnessing the tension between the two, Ao speaks up, reminding them that the most important thing right now is to decide what the group should do next. Lu nods in agreement. "Sorry, Lu, I was too impulsive." Ao begins to map out the plan. He explains that his and Eddie's main mission is still to patrol the Azavan forest, and he has already reported the situation to the higher-ups. Their next goal is to continue monitoring Russo and Danken's movements closely. Although Lu bluntly warns that as an official agent she sees absolutely no chance for them to win. Ao calmly admits, "I know. That's why we are just observing." Ao's plan is to expose their crimes to report to the Bureau and leave the rest for them to handle. Even though Lu is still worried about the looming danger, Ao asserts that is exactly why they are getting involved in this. He believes that if rank 6,000 adventurers like him and Eddie can complete this mission, things will change. If this succeeds, we'll be rising through the ranks like a kite in the wind, no joke. Lu sighs in admiration at Ao's will. She analyzes that with high stealth and tracking points in a dangerous rank 48 forest like Azavan, if the intelligence is reliable enough, Ao could easily climb at least 1,000 ranks. Hearing this, Eddie excitedly shouts, having regained his motivation to fight. Before acting, Lu reminds the group absolutely not to do anything reckless. Ao once again confirms that he will not engage in a direct confrontation to ensure safety. When asked about their next plan, Lu looks at the small beast and firmly says, "We want to take the royal horn to a safe place." Ao completely agrees, because Danken is aggressively targeting this creature. Keeping it by their side only increases the risk of being ambushed in the deep forest. Lu pants after the series of tense events. She looks at the tiny trembling creature and whispers, "No, that's not it. It's just that I don't want the royal horn involved in this anymore." Looking at the unicorn with eyes full of sympathy, she gently stroked it and added with a nod, "Yeah, it must have been so scared. Because we're right in the middle of the dark Azaban forest, Ao decisively made a call to ensure the target's safety. In that case, let's split up for now." He pointed toward a towering ancient tree in the distance as a signal. "Once you get the royal horn to safety, meet me under that tall tree. Either I or Eddie will be there every night," he said. Lao wondered about the purpose of this plan. Ao lowered his voice to explain, just in case something goes wrong. Who knows, we might need each other before we officially regroup. Eddie didn't forget to remind Lao before they parted, "Let me show you how to move through this forest." Seeing the two of them still lingering, Ao impatiently urged, "Hey, if we hesitate, Duncan might get away." But Eddie reassured Lao, "You go ahead. No matter where you are, I'll find you." He leaned close to Lao's ear, whispering and passing on crucial survival tips for deep in the woods. After being directly taught and shown the movement skills by Eddie, and Stealth Lao quietly marveled, there's really so much to learn. Because his old sword was damaged after those heavy collisions with Duncan, Lao asked to borrow a weapon. "I don't suppose this counts as tuition, but could I borrow that dagger? My sword is broken. Sure, if you don't mind using a hunting blade?" Ao didn't forget to leave one final piece of advice on how to train his mind before sleep. Practice visualizing a bit. It will really help increase your success rate. Eddie added, "You have to review it once every day." It made Lao extremely grateful. Finally, Luke gently patted the unicorn and signaled to Lao, "Well then, let's get the royal horn to a safe place." Finally, the group could continue the ecological survey they were assigned. Although Duncan remained a constant concern, Luke insisted they had a responsibility. "We have to finish this mission." Seeing that Luke still had some lingering doubts, Lao looked her straight in the eyes and firmly affirmed his position. He silently placed his trust in Ao and Eddie, even admitting that their skills are perhaps even better than my own. "Their skills are truly impressive, just as you said. We can trust them." Suddenly, Luke raised her finger excitedly and made a proposal. "In that case, I have an idea. How about we find the royal horn's home? While we do the survey." From the beginning, she had always wondered where this little creature came from, hoping there were still others like it out there. "It's lost its parents all alone with nowhere to turn." "That's so sad." Luke believed that if the place was truly safe, they could even leave it there. Lao wondered how to find that spot in the vast forest. Luke just smiled and patted the beast's head. "We just have to ask it." "Hey, little guy, where do you want to go?" After a moment of silence, the beast suddenly bolted. It caught them both off guard, causing them to shout in surprise. Luke quickly pointed in that direction. "Looks like it's that way." Lao was still a bit skeptical and asked back, "Really?" But Luke was already urging him to run after it. She believed in the royal horn's instinct for finding its way home, as they are very intelligent creatures. She explained that since it was so scared earlier, "If it's just a baby, of course it's going to want to go home." Lao nodded slightly. "That sounds reasonable." While busy chasing the creature's tracks, Luke suddenly jumped and cheered when she spotted a small green creature with a long tail clinging to a branch. "Another unidentified beast." She hurriedly ordered Lao write it down, and Lao immediately complied with the request. "Got it." Lao was busy sketching the shape of a primate into his notebook. He asked softly, "Like this, right?" Meanwhile, Luke was still full of enthusiasm for the survey work, constantly pointing toward strange creatures. "Lao, there's another one over there." Lao could only mumble a response, which made Luke snap, "You don't have to answer every single time. Well, if people talk, you answer. But if you don't answer, they complain you're not listening." Now, as sunset dyed the whole forest red, she still couldn't stop her excitement. "Lao, there's one over there." Night gradually fell over the Azaban forest, leaving behind a starry sky and a quiet crescent moon. But amidst the silence, Lao never stopped training himself. He stood alone in the dark, exhaling a breath to steady his rhythm. Immediately after that, a brilliant blue stream of prana erupted fiercely, covering Lao's entire body like a powerful flame of energy. He was giving his all to control and hone. While honing his strength as instructed, a voice suddenly echoed from behind. Noticing his friend approaching, he softly asked, "Am I bothering you?" He explained that he was just reviewing what Eddie had taught him. Seeing that she was still awake, he asked after her, and she held up a notebook announcing, "I just finished reading the report you wrote." Looking at the somewhat clumsy sketches, she couldn't help but critique him. "Your drawing skills are really terrible. You absolutely have to improve that." "There you go, criticizing people again. Just let it slide, will you?" Despite that, she gently continued, "But for now, I'll let you pass." She advised him to try writing more concisely, asserting that this was just objective feedback. The atmosphere suddenly turned solemn. He looked straight at her and asked in a low voice, "You said you want to capture Rosso for your own goal. Is that what you were talking about? Is it something you absolutely have to do?" She bowed her head slightly and answered softly, "Yes." Seeing his friend's pensive expression, he firmly declared, "I will help you." His resolve left her stunned. "Huh," she asked back. He looked toward the night sky and remarked in a low voice, "Staying up this late. It feels like if you just sit still, everything you've been suppressing will explode, right?" She could only silently acknowledge it with a yes. With a sad gaze, he continued softly, "I understand that feeling very well." Her eyes went wide with surprise as she asked, "You really understand? You say it like it's nothing big." She stared intently into his eyes, seemingly searching for true empathy beneath his stoic exterior as they walked together through the night forest, lit by the flickering campfire. She asked curiously, "Is that why you practice late every night?" He replied with a single short, yet firm, yes. She stood still, watching the young man's back, feeling a connection between two souls burdened by their own separate weights. "Thank you, but you don't even know what my goal is." He turned back to look at her and replied sincerely, "Even if I don't know, I can still help." Faced with that trust, she decided not to hide it anymore. "I will tell you what my true goal is." She began to explain the nature of this world. A place where the rankings are a list of the best from top to bottom. A place where everyone fights to climb higher to seek honor and prove their own worth. However, what if the opposite also existed? What if in this world there was a ranking that recorded those rising from the very bottom? Her gaze turned cold when mentioning a dark existence called the worst ranking. She looked straight at him and asserted clearly, "That is the dark side of the ranking that I am pursuing. 5 years ago, when I was still a little girl, I had a very close friend named Miriella. Miriella was a petite girl with golden hair, but fate was cruel. She was born blind and had never known what the outside world actually looked like. Because of that disability, Miriella never mocked her friend's ambitions, which were considered foolish." Sitting together on a wooden bench under the cool green shade, Miriella smiled gently and praised her. "Luke, that's amazing. Do you want to become an appraiser?" With sparkling eyes full of passion, Luke exclaimed excitedly, "Hey, my dream is to become an appraiser and break the #1 rank," she asserted proudly. That there is nothing more honorable than being the one to personally record the journeys of the great figures who will make history. Even though other children mocked her, saying she could never do it, but to Luke, Miriella was the only person who truly believed in her. Miriella comforted her gently. "Perhaps this school is too small for someone like you, Luke." Then she suddenly remembered something and told her friend, "Hey, yesterday, my dad said something. My family was invited on a cruise ship. I think it was called Bond something." Upon hearing that name, Luke jumped up in surprise. "Bond Solutions, that super luxury cruise ship that was just built recently?" Faced with her friend's intense reaction, Miriella only explained softly, "That because her father accepted an invitation from relatives, she didn't know much information." Miriella lowered her head and spoke in a low voice, making a suggestion that left Luke stunned. "So if you don't mind, I was going to ask, do you want my ticket?" Seeing her friend couldn't believe her ears, Miriella sighed sadly. "Because after all, I can't see anything anyway." Before her friend could finish, Luke shouted in protest, "No!" She firmly refused that luxurious ticket, to Miriella's amazement. "Giving away a VIP ticket like that? Why on earth would you refuse, girl?" "If I go, I want to go with you," Luke firmly asserted, then grasped her friend's hands tightly and promised, "I will definitely hold your hand the entire trip." Touched by that sincerity, Miriella smiled and agreed to ask her father's permission. In the end, Miriella's mother gave up the precious ticket so Luke could board the Bond Solutions cruise ship. It was magnificent. To a young girl always shunned by friends because of her big dreams, Miriella was the one and only most important friend Luke ever had. Conversely, Miriella's family also deeply cherished this friendship. Yet just 2 days later, a horrific tragedy struck unexpectedly when the glass shattered into pieces due to an engine failure and the giant ship ran aground, beginning to sink into the deep sea at a dizzying speed. The atmosphere in the control room grew extremely tense as more than half of the lifeboats were damaged in the collision, leaving very few boats remaining. It would take them 3 trips to evacuate all the passengers, and faced with such a life-threatening situation, the captain ordered everyone to assemble on the deck, and coldly declared that he himself would be the one to decide who had the right to board the lifeboats. This scenario sounds all too familiar, doesn't it, everyone? In this dire situation, hanging by a thread, the captain looked at the file on the table and whispered to himself that there was no other choice but to use it. He stepped out before the panicked crowd on the deck under a blood-red sky, saying, "The passenger list for the first boat will be announced now. If your name is called, please board the lifeboat immediately." Amidst the pushing crowd, Luke tightly gripped the hand of his blind friend, reassuring her, "It's okay, Miriella, I'm here with you." The loudspeaker began to blare the names of those chosen. Jack Brownlayer, Amit Luke Amiria, and following that, Lucas Nixon and Oliver Crow. As the announcement ended, that was the entire passenger list for the first lifeboat. Luke stood there, stunned and frozen in place. "Huh," she stammered, asking in disbelief, "Why is it only me?" At that very moment, Miriella quietly let go of Luke's hand. Luke shouted in desperation, "Miriella!" But the little friend just smiled back. "I'm fine, just go first. There's no time to argue. If we don't cooperate, no one will survive." Miriella placed her hand on her chest, entrusting her final belief. "I believe you will become a certified examiner, Luke. So I hope you will believe in me too." Everything happened so fast. The small lifeboats gradually moved away from the sinking ship amidst the fiery sunset. As soon as they brought the first group of passengers to shore, the boats immediately returned to the ship to continue the rescue. When the second round of rescue boats returned to land, Miriella was still not on them. And by the time the third rescue trip was about to depart, it was too late. A horrific explosion suddenly occurred, turning the ship into a giant torch, burning brightly beneath the sunset. Witnessing that scene, Luke collapsed onto the sand in absolute shock. "No way!" Nearby, two crew members spoke to each other nonchalantly and with relief. "Thank goodness we didn't get on that ship. Yeah, because we've been working hard." They whispered a cruel truth. The ones with the worst rankings were pushed down. Hearing that, Luke stood up abruptly, his face darkening with rage, and snapped back. "What does that mean? What is this worst ranking?" The two men jumped in terror. "Huh, kid, you heard that?" With cold, threatening eyes, she stared at their reactions. "This isn't something everyone should know, is it? Explain it. If you don't talk, I'll make sure the worst ranking becomes known all across this coast." Faced with the little girl's threat, one man clicked his tongue and compromised. "All right, I'll tell you, but don't you dare tell the captain." He began to reveal the dark existence known as the worst ranking. Back in reality, by the campfire, Luke spoke in a low voice to Lou, explaining that it was a ranking of people in order, from the lowest capability upwards regarding social, economic, physical, and mental aspects. It ranked those who were considered incompetent in all those fields. So with just a glance, one could immediately recognize it. It was used to decide who would be discarded if things went south. Luke revealed that those who hold the lives of others, like captains of luxury yachts, hospital directors, or politicians, frequently use this list. They use it to decide whose lives are prioritized in life or death situations. Luke looked into the fire. "My goal is to erase this wretched ranking from this world. I will never forgive the system that killed Miriella, a ranking that pushes people into despair, leaving them no place in this world." Lou listened in silence, then asked in a low voice, "I understand what the worst ranking is now. But what does it have to do with Rosso?" Luke explained that she wanted to use one criminal to take down another criminal. She said the worst ranking was an unofficial list, just like how Rosso was on the list of unregistered criminals. If we catch Rosso and use him to demand answers about these unofficial rankings, we might get closer to the person behind the worst ranking list. That is exactly why I want to take down Duncan at any cost. Lou curiously asked about the mastermind, but Luke admitted she didn't have any specific clues yet. However, she concluded that this was definitely a massive organization because it had even entangled politicians and the wealthy class. She even speculated that an underground version of the Certification Institute might exist. The two fell into silence in the quiet night forest. Looking at the small girl, Lou comforted her gently. "It must have been very hard for you. You've carried all of this on your own. It must hurt a lot, and yet you never stopped. You're extraordinary." "Luke, the pain I feel, it doesn't compare to yours. You lost your whole village." Hearing those words, Luke bit her lip to stop a sob. "Don't. If you say things like that now, I'm going to cry." She sat hugging her knees by the campfire, trying to suppress the tears welling up. Lou watched silently, feeling the pain she had endured for so long. Luke looked up, her eyes blurred with tears. "Then you have to tell me, too. It's not fair if I'm the only one crying. So tell me, what is your goal?" Lau nodded slightly, agreeing. "All right, but I won't cry right now," he challenged. "No way." "I'll make you cry in my arms," she replied. After a night of pouring their hearts out, dawn broke. Lau sobbed uncontrollably as he finished telling her about his painful past. She wiped away her tears, choked up, and wailed, "I had no idea you'd been through such hardship." Even after crying all night, the tears wouldn't stop falling. "You were the one trying to make me cry," he teased. But who would have thought she'd end up crying even harder? After a while, she calmed down, finally understanding the burden her companion was carrying. Now I see why you've been so reckless, Lao. He wanted to reach the island to make sure everyone was safe. However, she also realized that his impatience wouldn't get them to their goal. Lao looked at her with newfound respect and replied, "You're the one who taught me that. If I'm ever lacking in the future, please tell me." Standing in the middle of the vast forest, Lao made his proposal official. "Please become my exclusive appraiser. This time it's official." She wiped away her last tear and nodded. "Okay." She adjusted her brown hat, wearing a radiant and confident smile. "I will never regret this." Lao's gaze was now even more determined. Having found a truly reliable partner, a firm handshake marked the beginning of a new journey. The two of them, along with the royal horned beast, continued onward. Looking at the small creature ahead, she said softly, "We've come quite a long way. I hope it can find its way home safely," she added. Lao wondered aloud, "Now that you mention it, what region do royal horned beasts actually live in?" She explained that most of them live in deep caves. Thanks to their incredible vitality, they rarely need to hunt and usually choose to live quietly inside the caves. Deep dark rocks. So that's how those poachers manage to track them down. "They'll do anything for money," she muttered. Suddenly, the royal horned beast caught a familiar scent and bolted away, catching them both off guard. She shouted, urging Lao, "Don't lose track of it! Its home must be right around here." Lao immediately agreed and chased after it with her through the thick bushes. After running through the forest, the beast suddenly stopped in front of a giant object blocking the path. Standing before a gray cracked orb, Lao asked in confusion, "Is this a giant rock?" "No," she realized, shocked by something unusual. She rushed toward the rock, her face twisted in astonishment as she realized it wasn't a rock at all. It was a moose mimic, an extremely rare magical beast. She couldn't believe such a creature existed in the Azaban forest. However, as they moved closer to examine it, she realized it had been dead for a long time. She pondered, then confirmed, "I see. That explains all the mysteries." Seeing Lao still bewildered, he asked, "What do you mean?" She began to explain in detail. She asked if he knew about mimics, creatures that use treasure to lure and devour humans. But a moose mimic was on a whole other level. They use rare magical beasts instead of gold as bait. They trap these rare creatures inside their own bodies to lure in greedy poachers. Then, along with their symbiotic magical beasts, they devour their prey. Because of their habit of traveling everywhere to collect different types of magical beasts, they are known as mobile museums. Lao suddenly remembered and asked, "Does that mean the royal horned beast was inside this thing too?" She nodded, explaining that usually when hunting, a moose mimic would release all the magical beasts inside at once to attack the poachers. But this time, it seemed it had been countered. Lao's eyes hardened as he thought of someone with enough power to take down a creature of this size. He whispered the name Duncan. She typed rapidly on her device. Janelle breathed a sigh of relief because she had finally found the cause of the mass magical beast outbreak. In the Azaban forest, the death of the moose mimic had caused all the trapped magical beasts to escape at once, completely disrupting the forest's ecosystem. With this information, their survey report was finally complete. Looking at the giant carcass of the moose mimic, Lao exclaimed in horror, "This is terrible." He wondered if those wounds, those fatal ones, were they also caused by poachers? But she determined that the tearing marks appeared after it was already dead, caused by other beasts coming to feed. She explained that moose mimics usually have a very strong symbiotic bond, so whoever managed to take it down must be an incredibly terrifying magical beast that lives in this very forest. Looking at the one-horned beast standing quietly by the ruins, Lao said in a low voice, "You've lost your home too." He walked away with a sad expression, whispering, "I understand that feeling. It's like your heart is being torn apart." The deep empathy coming from the bottom of Lao's heart left her looking at him with pity. Suddenly, massive tremors shook the ground. Both were startled and turned around. A giant red ogre with a hulking frame and overwhelming killing intent appeared right behind the moose mimic's carcass. She realized with horror. "It's that guy we saw earlier." The monster let out a heart-wrenching roar and slammed a 1,000-pound fist into the ground, forcing Lao to quickly grab her and the small beast to dodge the attack. Destruction narrowly avoided. The red ogre began frantically tearing into the moose mimic's body. She gasped in shock. "It's eating it!" Witnessing the enemy destroying its old home, the royal horn, the one-horned beast couldn't contain its rage. It roared and charged straight at the giant, ignoring her warnings to stop. But with overwhelming power, the ogre just needed one swing of its arm to send the tiny creature flying, tossing it into the air before it crashed to the ground in pain. The royal horn, A one-horned beast shakily tried to stand after the heavy blow. Its body was still reeling, but its eyes burned with determination as it quietly stepped forward. Blocking the path between the beast and the enemy, he placed his hand on his sword hilt and commanded in a low voice, "Wait there." With a cold, fierce gaze, he drew his long sword from its scabbard with a decisive motion, declaring he would finish this in an instant. Amidst the tense standoff, Lo suddenly recalled Eddie's instructions. Before this, the young archer had asked, "You said there's a technique you wanted to use, but you kept failing, right?" Though he admitted he wasn't an expert in swordsmanship, Eddie had quickly realized the problem lay in how Lo used his prana. Lo had honestly confirmed, "Yeah, I think I'm failing because I can't control my prana." Flashing a confident smile, Eddie had offered his help. "If that's the case, it's simple. I will teach you the method of controlling prana passed down through the Maxman family." The boy assured him that with Lo's natural talent, he would quickly master the secret technique. Mastering the energy inside your body. If you can learn this, you'll reach the top in no time. Back to reality. Lo closed his eyes tightly, focusing all his mental energy to sense and channel his prana according to the Maxman family's method. His eyes snapped open, blazing with a powerful, deep blue energy. Prana lightning bolts erupted, enveloping Lo's face. In his memory, Eddie explained that after understanding how to reinforce his 5 senses, the next step was to use those very senses to look inside himself. Lo whispered deep in thought, "Look inside yourself." Eddie continued to explain, "It's like standing high above and looking down at yourself right from the top of your head." The boy affirmed that if Lo tried it, he would see something incredibly interesting, especially for someone with as much prana as Lo. The effect would be clearer than ever, returning to reality. Lo squeezed his eyes shut. Focusing his heightened senses to the maximum, he began to look deep within himself in the spiritual realm. Blazing with deep blue energy, he was shocked to realize, "This is me." Observing more closely, Lo saw the flow of prana inside his body was completely chaotic. He muttered, "I understand now. If it's like this, then..." Lo's eyes brightened with powerful blue electricity. He lunged forward like a bolt of lightning, closing in on his opponent to the ogre's astonishment. The red ogre roared, intending to crush its opponent, but Lo was one step faster. He gripped his sword hilt, channeled all his stabilized prana into the blade, and silently called the technique's name. True Path, transforming into harmony. Immediately, a slash carrying a brilliant blue light struck directly into the monster's massive frame. Watching the scene, Lo couldn't help but be shocked. He exclaimed, "The second move, did it actually work?" But Lo knew it wasn't enough yet. He muttered, "Wrong, just one move isn't enough." He dove in like a whirlwind, unleashing a flurry of sword strikes. They were so fast, the naked eye couldn't track them. Transforming into harmony was a terrifying technique because it accumulated power with every single slash, and the count never stopped. Each blue light trail struck the ogre's body in succession, creating immense pressure that left it no room to counter. The monster shrieked in extreme agony before the storm of sword energy. Lo's eyes glowed with cold indifference. He calmly sheathed his sword. The moment the click of the lock echoed, all the accumulated power exploded violently into a massive ball of energy, crushing the red ogre in an earth-shattering explosion. He was gone, his feet cold as ice. Lo stood frozen, unable to believe his own eyes at the power he had unleashed. After the battle, he quietly approached the royal horned beast, which was cowering in fear. He knelt, gently soothing the tiny creature. "Don't be afraid. I am not your enemy." The beast looked up at the young man with wary eyes. As Lo slowly reached out his hand, realizing the situation had become complex, Lo whispered to himself that it was better if they accompanied the royal horn. She looked around anxiously, because the forest was far too dangerous right now, and she couldn't help but wonder if Ayu's group was running into trouble as well. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, Dank and Iris was cruelly trampling a poor, snow-white creature. He held a knife, growling in annoyance because the prey wouldn't stay still. It kept him from making a precise cut. Dankin turned to ask Rosso Gran with a fierce look, "What if the merchandise gets a bit beat up? It doesn't matter, right?" But the old smuggler immediately shot it down, as that would lower the value of the goods. Even though Dankin argued they'd be ground into powder anyway, Rosso insisted on keeping them intact to avoid the customers suspecting they were fakes. Witnessing the brutal scene from the bushes, Ao couldn't help but feel nauseated by their cruelty. And Eddie completely agreed with that sentiment. Ao spoke in a low voice, admitting that these were not opponents they could face head-on right now. Eddie understood the situation clearly. He believed they had no choice but to retreat quickly to report the incident to the appraisal bureau. On the other side, Rosso happily noted they had gathered almost enough goods. He declared it was time to take the next step. Suddenly, Dank and Iris radiated a threatening, intense purple aura. He roared about having to immediately deal with the ones sneaking around behind them. Ao and Eddie were shocked to realize they had been discovered, not giving them a chance to react. Dankin lunged forward at a terrifying speed, slamming a lightning-fast blow that crushed their hiding spot. Eddie yelled in shock, "We masked our presence! How did you find us?" Dankin Iris, with his purple eyes full of malice, laughed loudly. "From the very beginning. You brats!" He explained that while the group was busy hunting magical beasts above, he was hunting for merchandise, and every magical beast's presence around here was already in the palm of his hand. Eddie gritted his teeth in anger. "You bastard!" He realized that a triple-digit rank adventurer didn't just possess raw power, but also terrifying tracking skills. Wasting no time, Ao immediately threw out a cloth bundle. But Ao was quick to snatch the bait. Now that his trick's been called, he's gonna have a hard time slipping away. He scoffed. "You think the same cheap trick will work twice?" But right at that moment, an arrow whistled through the air, piercing the fabric bundle in his hand, and a cloud of smoke exploded, obscuring Ao. Ken roared in fury. "I'm going to kill you!" Ao shouted, urging Eddie to run, and the two of them put everything they had into sprinting through the dense thickets, but Dan Can's laughter still echoed right on their heels. He insisted that the same little ruse wouldn't work again, leaving Eddie to nervously wonder what to do next. The young archer muttered to himself, "The only way now is to increase our survival odds, even if just by a little." Eddie gritted his teeth, quickly wrapped the note in a leaf around his arrow, drew his bowstring tight, and fired off an arrow charged with a deep blue aura. Once finished, Ao and Eddie stopped. "I've done everything I possibly could." The two turned back to face the enemy who was sauntering out of the white smoke. Dan Can Iris narrowed his eyes with interest. "What's this? You're still not running?" He roared arrogantly, "That's a smart idea. I know this terrain like the back of my hand. I'll kill you in one blow." Facing such overwhelming bloodlust, Ao flashed a confident grin. "Don't get in my way." Eddie immediately snapped back. "That's my line." The archer insisted that archers only show their true skills when they have cover, and he scoffed at Dan Can for being so wrong to think they were still the same as they were during the exam. Ao drew his sword prana beginning to blaze around his body. "Coincidentally, I'm completely different from back then, too. Teamwork is my specialty, and with a subordinate by my side, it's even easier to show my skills." Eddie huffed. "I'm not taking any sloppy orders." Ao smirked. "Good." Then two bursts of red and blue energy flared violently, radiating terrifying pressure as they clashed head-on with Dan Can. Ao asked firmly, "Shall we?" And Eddie answered decisively, "Yeah." Deep in the gloomy forest, Lu suddenly froze, sensing an unusual flow of energy. It was blanketing the space around him. He looked around warily and asked himself, "I feel a strange energy. Is it just an illusion?" Walking closer, Lu started discussing the next plan about what to do with the king's horn from now on. At this point, "I think the best thing to do is protect this child. Take it to the appraisal bureau. It's not my first time protecting a magic beast. Leave it to me." However, Lu looked deeply worried. He gazed into the distance and said in a low voice, "That guy won't just sit still. If we want to leave the forest with the king's horn, we have no choice but to defeat Dan Can." Faced with his comrade's resolve, Lu softly replied, "I think so too." Standing among the ancient trees, Lu began analyzing the situation. "There are exactly two options appearing in my mind. First, wait for Ao to report to the appraisal bureau and wait for reinforcements." He understood that if high-level experts like Lu were nearby, reinforcements would arrive very quickly. Otherwise, it would take a lot of time to gather forces. Thinking of the enemy's terrifying face, Lu silently concluded, "But our opponent is Dan Can. Dan Can controls his aura even better than I do. I'm not confident I can keep running from his senses forever." Lu looked him straight in the eye. Lu raised a finger and declared, "The other way is very simple. Returning to the battle, Dan." Can Iris gasped in shock. "What?" He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw both Ao and Eddie were both radiating brilliant auras, one a fiery red, the other a cool blue. In reality, it wasn't that they suddenly acquired that power, but that they had possessed the potential for a long time. Normally, people only awaken their aura when they reach a level of mastery in a certain field. However, without a strong enough catalyst to push that potential, it would remain dormant forever. As for AU, he had spent years honing his combat senses during his days as a harsh mercenary. His ability to calculate the enemy's strength had reached maturity, helping him face no difficulties throughout the recent years. And Eddie, he was a genius archer born from a prestigious bloodline living under the shadow of his illustrious family. No one had the courage to challenge or make things difficult for him. Unfortunately, it was that very comfort that meant neither of them had ever tasted the flavor of failure. But luckily, recently, they had encountered an anomaly named Lou Tully. The crushing defeat at Lou's hands became the spark for their breakthrough, helping them shatter their own limits. Standing before the strongest enemy he had ever faced, Ao gripped his sword hilt and declared, "That's enough." Eddie also drew his bowstring taut with sharp eyes. To awaken instantly, Ao lunged forward with terrifying speed. Caught off guard by the sudden strike, the savage adventurer roared in a rage. Pouring all his strength into his giant fist, he aimed straight at Ao to crush him. Ao swung his sword, slashing directly at the arm covered in purple prana. Dan Iris felt clearly the movement of energy within every fiber. He gasped in shock in his mind. "I see it. Is this the power of aura?" Far away on the tree canopy, Eddie also began to notice the miraculous change as the once invisible energy now appeared with colors before his eyes. The young archer confidently claimed that he could now fire with more precision than ever before. He decisively released the bowstring, launching a sharp arrow. The arrow flew with an impossible trajectory, making Dan Iris pale in shock. He realized that the small bastard had aimed exactly where he intended to dodge. Even though Dan tried to burst his purple energy to deflect the attack, the arrow still embedded itself straight into him, creating a shocking explosion.